Right, welcome everybody to this afternoon's strategic planning. If I can just remind people to put your phones on silent or switch them off. First off, membership of the committee. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Chair. I'm subbing for Councillor Firth.
Right, thanks Nigel. Rest of us are as printed. Item 2, this is interests and lobbying. I'll start off with Councillor Pattison.
None, Chair.
Councillor Patrick.
None, Chair.
Councillor Scott.
Items 7, 9, 10 for objectors and supporters, none advice given or action.
Thanks, Cathy. Councillor Sokol.
Yes, Chair. Item 8, agenda item 8. Yeah, it's a swimming pool in Bartley. I'm a trustee of the Kirklees Active Leisure Service. So there is some facility called facility in Bartley town centre. So it might be clashing business. So I'm declare my interest on the board. I don't think it will prevent me to vote on that. I don't know. I seek advice.
I doubt it, but I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. It's not direct anyway. Yes. Yeah. Another thing, I want to declare and I want to make a statement actually on item 9, Castle page 30.
31. What I'll do, Mo, and I'll call you when we get to page 31.
All right, yeah, okay. All right.
Some virtually the same. Councillor Pinnett.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I, like assume everybody else, has been lobbied on item 9 by David Knight. I've noted his comments. I have also had a conversation with Councillor Munro, but I have expressed no intention at all, other than listening to what she had to say.
Thanks, Andrew.
That's it, Chair.
Cool. Councillor Bellamy.
Item 9, Chair, been contacted by a couple of people, including the press. No action taken and no comments made.
Thanks, Donna. Right, I've got page 5, page 31 and page 91. Now, some of these are historical, but at least being above board. So that's page 5, page 31 and page 9. Action taken, advice given, none. Right, item 3, admission to the public. This is a webcast meeting, so best behaviour, everybody. Item 4, public questions. None. Item 5, deputations and petitions.
None received, Chair.
None. Right, into planning applications now. Usually at this point as well, we have site visits. Obviously, due to the situation we're in, none of us have taken any site visits, although I do know Andrew likes to get out and about at times. Right, Andrew. Right, item 7.
Sorry, Chair, can I just say my piece about transparency and members who are observing but are not on the committee. Members observing but not on the committee are ward members Councillor Munro, McGuinn, Councillor Davis, Newsom Ward, Councillor Lee Richards, Councillor Cooper, Home Valley South, Councillor Donald Firth, on the Owl Lane application, Councillor Eric Firth, Alex Lucic, and that.
I think that covers it, Deborah.
Just to say that they're observing and they're not participating on the committee.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, Deborah. Right. First application, page 5. This is Jack Lane, Batley Car. I don't know who's leading on it.
I think Victor is going to be.
Victor. Bear with us, Victor.
He was just now.
Oh,
He's just being chased up, Chair.
right.
He's fine. He's just getting this sorted now.
Apologies, Chair. Sorry, I hope you can all see the presentation on the screen now.
Yep.
So this is a Victor Grayson Development and Management Master Planner in the Majors and Minerals team.
Stop you. We can only see part that you need to enlarge it and put it onto the slideshow presentation.
Sorry.
That's it.
Okay. Sorry, Chair, I missed some of the introduction. Am I okay to proceed with introducing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Victor Grayson, Development Management Master Planner. Chair, I'll be presenting items 7, 8 and 10 this afternoon, and David Wordsworth, team leader of the Majors and Minerals team, will present item 9, if that's okay. So item 7, this is an application for full planning permission for the installation of 2 fibre cabins, 12 air conditioning units, 2 generators and perimeter fencing on land to the south of Jack Lane, Batley. Members will recall this application came to the Strategic Planning Committee on the 29th of July of this year. A decision was deferred to allow further discussions to take place between the applicant, representatives of the adjacent mosque and officers regarding displaced parking. Those discussions have now taken place and a potential solution has been agreed. The application was brought to committee at the request of Councillor Zaman due to concerns regarding highways and flood risk. The application site is located at the junction of Jack Lane and Bradford Road. To the north of the site is Red Brick Mills, which is considered to be a non-designated heritage asset. To the south is a single-storey building used as a mosque. To the east of the site is staff parking for Red Brick Mills. The site is owned by the council and was previously leased to Red Brick Mills for staff parking. Red Brick Mills ceased their lease in April 2019. Prior to this date, attendees of the adjacent mosque had been using the land for parking without the landowner's permission and continue to do so. The site is unallocated in the local plan. So here we see the proposed site plan. The proposals involve the construction of an equipment compound towards the centre of the site with boundary treatments and planting surrounding it. The proposed development represents essential infrastructure that would ensure high-speed fibre broadband is accessible to Kirklees users. Photographs of the site, which members will recall from July. This is a picture of the trees along the edge of the site fronting Jack Lane. This is the Jack Lane Bradford Road junction. And then panning across southwards, this is the site's Bradford Road frontage. And further along, this image shows the adjacent mosque. And these are the proposed elevations. The elevations seen here illustrate the cabins and other installations, which would all be enclosed by a 2.4 metre high mesh fence for the equipment compound, retained trees and shrubs, and a brick perimeter wall with metal railings above. Although the site is located at a relatively prominent corner location, due to their design and scale, the proposals within their urban context would not result in harm to visual amenity. Furthermore, the appearance of the proposed boundary treatments is similar to that found within the locality and would not appear out of character within this context. In respect of the impact of the development on residential amenity, the nearest residential properties to the site are located to the west. Environmental health officers consider that the proposals could potentially impact on the level of residential amenity enjoyed by the neighbouring residential uses and adjacent mosque. As such, a condition is recommended to secure the submission of a noise report to address how the existing uses will be protected from the proposed development. This would ensure accordance with relevant policies. The site would be accessed via Jack Lane, where there are no traffic regulation orders on the approach to the junction with Bradford Road. Officers consider that the general operation of the proposals would not create a significant increase in local traffic. Now, regarding parking, since the deferral of the application in July, officers have met with the applicant, their agent and representatives of the mosque, and a potential solution has been discussed in terms of agreement to utilise the remaining space to the south of the proposed compound. This area could accommodate around 11 or 12 vehicles. Of note, since the deferral of the application, the applicant has amended the proposed layout to reduce the size of the proposed compound, so more space will be kept free for parking. In addition, there is unrestricted parking available on Jack Lane, adjacent to the site, which will be suitable for up to 12 vehicles. Representatives of the mosque yesterday confirmed that they were content with these arrangements and that their objection to the application was withdrawn, subject to a legal agreement being drawn up, safeguarding the mosque's ability to access the council's land and use it for car parking. As a legal agreement is not considered necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms, it is not recommended that this be secured via the council's decision on this application. However, it is nonetheless noted that recent discussions should give members reassurance that significant amounts of mosque-related parking would not be displaced by the development. I would just add, members, that those discussions have involved the council's estates team, as well as the applicant and their agent. Finally, in relation to highways matters, it is acknowledged that there may be some disruption and additional traffic during the construction phase of the development due to the site's access constraints. As such, officers consider it necessary to apply a condition requiring the submission of a construction management plan. The site is located within flood zone 2 and at risk of flooding is at risk of flooding from a main river source. The applicant has submitted a site-specific flood risk assessment and sequential test, which have been reviewed by the lead local flood authority. An exception test is not required. The LLFA have no objection to the proposals, nor do the Environment Agency. The proposals are therefore considered to be acceptable in relation to flood risk. And then just to conclude, the proposals are considered to accord with all relevant policies, and approval of planning permission is recommended. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Right, we've got two speakers. First speaker is Chris Bradshaw.
Okay, Chair, I'll try and call him now.
Yeah. You've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Hi. Thank you, Chair, and to committee members for the opportunity to speak to you today in support of the application. My name is Chris and I'm the planning agent acting on behalf of City Fibre. As you know, the application was deferred on the 29th of July to allow for further discussions to take place between City Fibre, the mosque and council regarding loss of parking provision. Since this time, City Fibre have been actively engaging with Kirklees planning, highways and estates team, along with representatives of the mosque. This included a meeting which occurred on site on the 1st of October. Prior to the meeting, information related to parking restrictions and traffic regulation orders was provided by the council's highway team, which demonstrated alternative on-street parking opportunities were available in the vicinity of the mosque. A nearby site was also identified as a potential replacement parking area. However, this was dismissed on highway safety grounds. It was also identified by the council's estate team that a strip of land between the mosque and the application site had no registered ownership. This information was presented at the site meeting, where it was agreed in principle that the council would assist the mosque in acquiring the unregistered land. It was also discussed that the surplus land of the application site located outside of the compound could also be used by the mosque for parking purposes. Following the meeting, a draft memorandum of understanding has been produced, which sets out that City Fibre will have no objections to patrons of the mosque gaining access over or parking on their leasehold, which falls outside of the compound. This draft memorandum of understanding has been provided to the mosque for their consideration, who have responded saying that they support the proposed arrangements. Additionally, the proposed development design has been amended through reducing the size of the compound and resiting it to maximise and retain as much of the car park as possible, whilst ensuring the proposed development can still function. The council have reviewed these amendments, including the highways team, who have stated they have no objections to the proposals. Concerns were also raised about the proposed development being inappropriate within a flood zone 2. Additional information was provided to the Environment Agency, where they concluded the development classed as essential infrastructure and is therefore appropriate for the site. In conclusion, as per the previous committee resolution, City Fibre has engaged constructively with the council and mosque to develop an appropriate solution to the loss of parking, leading to the actions and results outlined. Suitable mitigation measures have been identified to safeguard parking provision for the mosque in future. Thank you for the opportunity to address you all, and further to the point raised, I respectfully request that members support and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks. The next speaker is Steve Moore.
Okay.
Afternoon, Steve. Afternoon. You have 3 minutes, and your 3 minutes starts from now.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to speak. I won't repeat the points that Victor and Chris have made in relation to resizing the site, because I think all that's been made very clear. I think I just wanted to highlight the strategic importance that the site holds to the investments in full fibre that we're bringing to Kirklees, and this site is key in getting 80,000 homes serviceable with the next generation of internet connectivity. I think that's it from me. It's very key for the site, and I hope that you look upon it favourably.
Right. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Members, it's Bill. Kathy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'd like to commend officers and all involved in this. We set out things that we wanted them to work with the community, the mosque. Everybody appears to be satisfied. So I'm happy to move this application with the officers' recommendations.
Thanks, Kath. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Scott. A lot of good work has been done since July, and I think we've got a very workable solution which will give benefits to quite a lot of people. So I'm happy to second it.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. I agree. Both Councillor Kathy Scott and Andrew Pinnock. I'm the same. It's good to see the local community, which is our mosque people, and the City Fibre had a very constructive talk, and they agreed to share the facility of the car park. So I'm supporting this application, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohan. Anybody? No. Right, it's been moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Pinnock. We'll go round table. Richard.
Okay, thank you. So this is a vote to approve the recommendation as outlined in the submitted report. So if I could start with Councillor Bellamy, please.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Patrick.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
For.
And Councillor Hall.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair, so officer recommendation is approved.
Right, thanks everybody. Next item, page 19. This is 260 Bradford Road, not far from where we've just been. Victor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, quite right. It's just up the road from the previous application site. This is an application relating to 260 Bradford Road, Batley. The application is being presented to Strategic Planning Committee due to the size of the site being over half a hectare in size. Members to note, one representation has been received in relation to this application. The application site is a hard surfaced area on the east side of Batley Beck, to the rear of the JD Gym on Bradford Road. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a 557 square metre D2 leisure use building that would be used as an independent swimming school, and a 408 square metre B1C/B8 use building that would be used as a starter unit or trade counter building. This proposed site plan shows the two buildings and areas of associated car parking. The proposed buildings would be accessed via the existing bridge over Batley Beck. These photographs illustrate the current situation on site. Members may recognise the site. An application for the erection of a standby generator on this land was previously considered by the committee. This is the proposed trade counter building, that's Unit 2. A very functional design is proposed with profiled steel cladding and minimal fenestration. And this is the other building proposed, the larger unit, Unit 1. This is the one that would be used as an independent swimming school building. Now, regarding land use and the principle of development, the site is unallocated in the local plan. The proposed leisure use is a main town centre use as defined in the local plan, yet it's proposed outside a defined centre. The applicant was therefore required to submit a sequential test and impact assessment. This assessment has confirmed that there are no sequentially preferable sites available in the nearest defined centres. Regarding impact, officers have concluded that the proposed leisure use may impact upon the town centre facility in Batley. However, there is no evidence to suggest that this would be a significant adverse impact, and that term is set out in paragraph 90 of the MPPF and local plan policy LP13, and that's the test that would have to be met, or rather significant adverse impact would have to be demonstrated for this application to be considered unacceptable, which it isn't. The proposed B1C/B8 use does not require sequential testing in relation to land use and is considered acceptable. As set out in the committee report, officers are satisfied that the design and materials of the building are acceptable and the buildings would not harm the local amenities or the character of the area. Officers are also satisfied that there are no sequentially preferable sites for the proposed development in relation to flood risk. Subject to conditions, there will be no undue harm to residential amenity. Highways Development Management officers are satisfied that there will be no highway safety issues as a result of utilising the existing access of Bradford Road, and the proposed parking provision within the site, which would be 72 additional parking spaces, is adequate to accommodate the visitors and staff associated with the development. Turning can also be achieved within the site. In conclusion, it's considered by officers that the proposed development represents an efficient use of existing land. Subject to the conditions set out in the officer report, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Right, thanks Victor. There's no speakers, so members, it's straight over to you. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a question, and particularly in relation to the fact that the car park has got 72 spaces. I just wonder what Highways' assessment of any potential conflict between the users of this site and the users of the site in the front, the JD Sports facility, and I just wonder if we could just have a quick assessment for our benefit of what whether Highways thought there was any potential conflict. Otherwise, it seems okay to me. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. We've got Chris here, or Ryan?
Yeah, I'm here, Chair. Yeah. The gym and the restaurant to the front on the existing, what was the Frontier Club, that already has its own parking provision. This 72 spaces is actually on the site to the rear, which these developments are on.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be any conflict. And in addition, I think it's quite beneficial that the industrial use, particularly this element, is unlikely to be clashing when the restaurant and the gym are in at peak periods. You know, during the day, the industrial units is likely to get most of its traffic, where the restaurant and the gym are likely to be getting things on an evening. So from a traffic entry and exit in the site point of view, there's two uses that work quite well together, actually.
Thank you very much.
And actually, the provision is actually probably an over provision. It's just what they can get on the piece of land at the back, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cheers. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Patterson.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say that I think this application is far preferable to the one that we approved last year with the gas-powered standby generator. I know we had a few qualms over that in terms of amenity and the possible effect on residents living above the site, but this seems a much more pleasing application, and one that complements JD Sports, of course. So I'm happy to approve this. And sorry, Councillor Pinnock, did you move it?
No, I didn't. No.
I'll move it in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Right, thanks, Carol. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to highlight a fact that was brought up in 10.9 about the swimming pools, how it would impact the Kirklees Active Leisure said it would impact on them in the Batley area. But where the proposal is, it's on the main corridor, and it's the same distance from where this proposal is to Batley swimming pools as it is to Dewsbury. It's going to have a massive impact. And I'm basing it on need. So that's just a comment. Andrew, you've already covered the parking issues, because there is a restaurant heavily used day and night. And there's also the sports that's used day and night. But they say there's additional parking around the back. That's fine. But I do have my concerns that there's already adequate provision in the area.
Any more? So far it's been moved by Councillor Patterson with no seconder for it.
I second it, Mr. Yeah. I second it, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you.
Must admit, when I saw it, being a member of Cal, I would have been very dubious about it. But I think seeing as it's situated where it is, which is
sorry,
behind.
Mr. Chair, it gone out of my mind. I think it's better someone else to second it. Yeah.
I'll second it.
Right, thanks, Nigel. It did make me think, is it going to be a detriment? But because it's where it is, slap bang outside at Sports Centre, I don't think it'll have all that much effect on such as Batley, Howden Clough, or Dewsbury. But anybody who had second thoughts, I do understand. So we've ended up now, it's been moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Patrick, so we'll move to a vote. Richard.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you. Right, so this is a vote to Approve the application as outlined in the recommendation in the report. So if we can go first to Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Patrick.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
I abstain on this one, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you.
Right, thanks, Mohan.
And Councillor Hall.
For.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for, 1 abstention. So the officer recommendation is approved.
Right, thank you. Next, page 31. David Wordsworth.
Good afternoon, Chair. Members of the committee.
Just before we start on this, David, I think Mohan has Councillor Sokol something to say, a short statement, and also myself.
Okay.
Right, Mohan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought it's better for me to make it clear to everyone. I got a statement to say. Mr. Chair, firstly, in year 2012, I did not sit on the planning committee meeting when the previous application for this site came forward. It's nearly 8 years ago. Yeah, I decided not to sit on this meeting because I attended a presentation by the developer at another forum together with a few other councillors and ex-councillor now. Yeah. I went to hear what the proposals were. I made no comment and have no relationship with the developer. Secondly, there was a pre-application advice meeting of the Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee on 20th October year 2017, which I attended. Advice was given in principle on broad consensus among members that Castle Hill may benefit from additional visitor facilities. Mr. Chair, this is a new application to be determined on its merits, and I come to this meeting with an open mind and make this statement accordingly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Right, thanks, Mohan. Basically, what I've got to say is, Mohan's just about said it. I've seen various models of various buildings that have been in the pipeline to be erected at Castle Hill. I have apparently said that I just think that it's a question of time before something is built at Castle Hill. What that is, I've no idea. Can't tell you until I see something that I like. As far as this application goes, it's a brand new application, brand new building, so I'll be looking at it with a completely open mind, and that's my statement. So first off, we'll go to David.
Chair, can I just,
Wordsworth.
Chair, can I just say one thing? No, just for clarification, Chair, that to point out we've had a number of public questions that have been submitted to the committee in relation to this particular application. So just to be clear that under public questions, the committee is not able to actually address questions specific to an application that they are determining, but we've passed those questions forward to the planning case officer, who will have taken those into consideration, and that will form part of our obviously committee debate this afternoon.
Right. Yeah, it's quite a very long list of questions and what have you. We've been sat here rather a long time, so a lot of them are the same, but we'll do it this specific way. So, David Wordsworth, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, I'm David Wordsworth, team leader for the Majors and Minerals team at the council. I present item 9 on page 31 of the agenda and the agenda update papers. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of a restaurant, cafe, bar, 6 guest rooms, exhibition, interpretation room, WCs, terrace, car parking and ancillary accommodation within the curtilage of a listed building, Victoria Tower, located at Lum Lane, Castle Hill, Almondbury in Huddersfield. I will be as brief as possible, members, but there are quite a few issues to go through to give a balanced view of the proposal. Next slide. This is the planning application location plan. The red line defines the extent of the application site, including the access. Land shown by the blue line is the land leased by the applicants from Kirklees Council. The site is subject to several designations: Scheduled Ancient Monument, Green Belt, Wildlife Site and part of the Wildlife Habitat Network. Local Geological Site, Victoria Tower is a Grade 2 listed building. Next slide. This slide provides aerial views at the site. Members should note the 2 existing parking areas are in poor condition. This is a view of Victoria Tower from the top of the hill from the northeast. The long view is from Paul Lane to the east. It's important to note that Castle Hill is visible from many locations in Kirklees, including Huddersfield Town Centre, Greenhead Park, and many elevated vantage points in the south of the borough and locations further away, such as Ainley Top, Hartshead Moor Services, Chidswell, to name a few. This slide includes a map of 1922. The highlighted buildings are those demolished since this year. The trend over the last few decades has been to remove buildings. Castle Hill Hotel was demolished in 2005. The hotel is shown in the accompanying photograph, but it's important that members do not simply compare the current proposal against the demolished hotel. Next slide, please. Site layout plan includes 3-storey building and car parking, and its proximity to Victoria Tower. Members, please note the car park has had a minor amendment to accommodate a public right-of-way diversion that has included the loss of 1 parking space. Now to the floor plans. Next slide, please. So the third or top floor layout includes a restaurant, cafe and bar area. There is also an outdoor terrace that wraps around the restaurant and a larger terrace to the south. That's a larger terrace to the south, if you can see my cursor, that will be used in periods of more favourable weather. The middle floor, or the second floor layout, includes the main entrance, where my cursor is, public toilets, which are in this area here, and the interpretation room, which is there, and 6 guest rooms, which will primarily be for customers of the restaurant and bar area, but could double up as a breakout meeting spaces. The applicant's intention is not to create a destination hotel. The management of these facilities is to be secured by the planning obligation. In terms of the first floor or the basement, there isn't a plan showing the layout here, but that is back of house, kitchen, cold store and staff room, etc. Next slide, the elevations, please. The elevations demonstrate the relationship of the building with the Victoria Tower from the south, which is the elevation on the top, and north on the bottom. Now, in terms of the 3D images, it's important to note that whilst the building is 3 stories in height, it is only the top or the 3rd level that appears above ground or above the grass berms, clearly demonstrated by the section drawing and the 3D images. Right, turning now to the CGIs. These views are from the southeast and the west. In dealing with the principle of development first, national policy in paragraph 145 of the MPPF states that the construction of new buildings in the Greenbelt is inappropriate development. And paragraph 143 states that inappropriate development is by definition harmful to the Greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. Paragraph 145 lists the kind of development as exceptions that can be regarded as appropriate. However, the proposal does not fall under any of these. It is noted that a public house existed on the site but cannot be described as previously developed or brownfield land given the time that has elapsed since its demolition in 2005. To justify the construction of new buildings at this site, the applicant must demonstrate very special circumstances in accordance with paragraph 143. The application site sits on a scheduled ancient monument and is also within the setting of a Grade 2 listed building, Victoria Tower, and therefore the development has the potential to harm important heritage assets. Paragraph 193 of the MPPF states that when considering proposals that impact upon the significance of the asset, great weight should be given to the asset's conservation, and the more important the asset, the greater the weight should be. Irrespective of whether any potential harm amounts to substantial harm, total loss, or less than substantial harm. Paragraph 194 of the MPPF states that any harm to the significance of the designated heritage asset from its alteration or destruction or from development within its setting should require clear and convincing justification. Paragraph 196 states that where a development proposal will lead to less than substantial harm to the significance of a designated heritage asset, as is the case here, this harm should be weighed against the public benefits of the proposal, including where appropriate, securing its optimum viable use. The level of harm caused to the heritage assets has been reduced by the high quality design of the proposed scheme, but it must be recognised that this harm has not been eradicated. I will come to design and archaeology after I have concluded on the principle. It should be recognised that the proposed restaurant, cafe, bar, guest rooms and interpretation room are main town centre uses. Local plan policy states that such uses outside of town centre locations will only be permitted where the identified needs of business cannot be met inside existing town centres. Policy LP13 requires such proposals to be supported by a sequential test. Policy LP16 requires proposals for food and drink outside of town centres to be supported by the submission of sequential and impact tests and compliance with specific criteria. The applicants have made the case that commercial element is required to provide any facilities at the site. The introduction of town centre uses is considered to be justified by the need for a commercial operation for the provision of public toilets and interpretation room, and therefore sequential and impact tests were not submitted. Whilst the aforementioned site constraints are noted, so too are the site's opportunities. A development on Castle Hill has the opportunity to deliver leisure, tourism and employment-related benefits, and the proposal is supported by the Council's Economy, Regeneration and Culture team. A small number of consultation responses recognise that some provision of facilities, i.e. small cafe and public toilets, could enhance the attraction of Castle Hill as a leisure destination. It is also acknowledged that a form of development that included interpretation facilities could enhance the role and appreciation of Castle Hill as a hugely important educational resource. Finally, it is recognised that a high-quality facility at Castle Hill could improve the image of Kirklees. The Council's pre-application advice in 2017 indicated that Castle Hill would benefit from additional facilities for visitors, including toilets, somewhere to eat and drink, and interpretation, that a viable business would be needed to deliver these facilities, and any new facility would by definition be harmful to the Greenbelt, and that the applicant would need to demonstrate very special circumstances to outweigh harm. Historic England have previously recognised that there is an opportunity to improve the visitor experience on Castle Hill and provide the interpretive and educational space the infrastructure it deserves. The applicants have made a clear, convincing case to demonstrate that the scheme will bring about public benefits, and these are explained in paragraph 10.18 to 10.26 of the committee report. They include the provision of the following: public toilets, shelter from inclement weather, refreshment provision, information boards, interpretation room, 24-hour supervisory presence, economic benefits through job creation and additional spend from tourists and visitors, vehicle passing places to facilities and to facilitate improvement to vehicle access and safety, creation of formal car park. Cumulatively, the public benefits carry significant weight. Conditions are attached to the recommendation, and the Section 106 would be agreed to secure the delivery in perpetuity through a detailed management plan. It is acknowledged that the value attributed to the public benefits is questioned by some. Also, that some objectors commented that Castle Hill is visited by large numbers of people without any facilities, so therefore is not required. It should also be noted that some objectors have argued that the proposal will damage the uncluttered character and therefore will be less likely to be visited. But to conclude on the principle of development, these points are noted. However, cumulatively, these public benefits are afforded significant weight, sufficient to outweigh the harm identified. Specifically on Greenbelt issue, these public benefits constitute very special circumstances and are worthy of attracting a very high degree of positive weight in the planning balance, such that justifies inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. The public benefits also help to outweigh the likely harm caused by the introduction of main town centre uses outside of the defined centres, as well as harm to heritage assets. There are, of course, other issues for the committee to consider, and I will be as brief as I can to run through each. Design. For the aforementioned reasons of prominent status and heritage importance, the design of any structure or building at this site must be of exceptional quality, and as acknowledged from Kirklees Council Conservation Area officers and Historic England, that this piece of architecture represents a high quality design. The level of harm caused by the building to the setting of the scheduled ancient monument and Victoria Tower has been reduced by the improved design, but the harm caused to heritage assets has not been removed or addressed completely. It is noted that the current scheme sits down on the site, with the lower ground floor being earth sheltered. Consideration has been given to the visitor experience. The materials proposed are natural stone walls, timber window frames and zinc roof, with areas of full height glazing. It is acknowledged that much care needs to be taken in the selection of the specific material, and samples would be required to ensure that the relationship with Victoria Tower is acceptable. Officers recommend that conditions control this element of design. In terms of archaeology, Castle Hill is a scheduled ancient monument. It includes the remains of a late Bronze Age or early Iron Age hill fort and a 12th century modern Bailey Castle, and is the site of a deserted medieval village. The site is of national archaeological importance. Heritage England granted scheduled monument consent to allow an archaeological dig at Castle Hill in 2018. An archaeological trial trenching report was submitted in 2019. 3 trenches were dug across the footprint of the former Castle Hill Hotel and outbuildings that once stood to the north. Little of archaeological interest was discovered. Concerns regarding this lack of archaeological information have been raised with the applicant. In response, the applicant's updated planning support statement states that by careful siting of the new scheme on the site of the former hotel, supported by ground investigation, no archaeological harm will be caused by the development. It is recommended that a pre-commencement condition be applied, requiring the submission of an up-to-date and fully illustrated archaeological impact assessment to be considered by the council in consultation with WIAS. In terms of highways, the applicant proposes the following alterations to the existing highway: the creation of 2 new passing places, the widening of an existing passing place on the access lane, cutting back existing vegetation and geotextile strip proposed along the hill on the west side of the carriageway. This is a response to concerns regarding introducing new uses and increasing activity and vehicle movements via a relatively steep single-width lane. These proposals, in addition to a scheme for traffic calming to be controlled by condition, is considered acceptable to officers. The parking areas of Castle Hill can accommodate up to a maximum of 60 vehicles. The applicant's proposals involve the creation of a 41-space car parking area, including 5 disabled parking bays. The applicant carried out visitor surveys to assess current visitor numbers. HDM officers have advised that cumulative predictive vehicle numbers should not exceed 49. Therefore, the number of covers at the restaurant and cafe bar should be limited to 70 by condition. Additional conditions would prevent the holding of wedding receptions and other functions. Measures to encourage the use of sustainable methods of transport are required. Highway works to secure the creation and widening of existing passing places and a travel plan and its monitoring fees are to be secured through the Section 106 agreement. In terms of flood risk, the application site is within flood zone 1, and being at the top of this hill, staff and visitors are not at significant risk of flood risk. The proposed development's impact upon drainage surrounding the site are, however, a material planning consideration. Foul drainage is a matter relevant to planning. The proposed development did attract an objection from the lead local flood authority due to the lack of information submitted in relation to drainage. However, given the possibility of infiltration being acceptable at this site, the space available for the provision of an adequate drainage solution, and the potential for the remaining services of Castle Hill Hotel still to be reused, it is recommended that the outstanding drainage matters, including foul water, can be secured by conditions. The LLFA have removed their objection. Biodiversity. The application site is subject to a number of nature conservation designations, including local nature reserve, local wildlife site, the Kirklees Wildlife Habitat Network, a SSSI, impact risk zone, and a biodiversity opportunity zone. The site is also within a local geological site. An updated ecological impact assessment was submitted in July 2019. A field study found a limited range of birds present at the site and concluded that, given the site's habitats and human disturbance levels, it is not likely to support notable assemblages of protected species. Subject to implementation of measures such as bat box provision, reseeding of disturbed ground and provision of wildlife information boards, no significant effects would be caused. A recommended condition would address this by requiring the submission of details of the site's baseline ecological value and of measures to secure a biodiversity net gain. A related planning obligation is also recommended should off-site compensatory prove necessary. In terms of public representations, the application was advertised via site notices, press notices and letters delivered to the addresses close to the application site. Following the redesign of the proposed development and the submission of new drawings, a second round of consultation was carried out. Over 300 representations have been received, including from Huddersfield Civic Society, the Huddersfield and District Archaeological Society, and Campaign to Protect Rural England, Castle Hill Associates, and the Forest of Galtrays Society. These have been posted online. In terms of the public rights of way, the applicant has engaged with the Council's public rights of way team to address concerns that the proposed development would obstruct footpath 169 and byway 171. The applicant provided further drawings which address the main concerns relating to prows. It is recommended that these drawings be approved, that a condition be applied requiring full details of a scheme for the treatment of prows, and condition 8 regarding passing places and traffic calming would be expanded to require measures to address the prows team's concerns regarding byway HUD 171. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has advised that the Secretary of State has received a request to call in the current planning application. The Secretary of State will make a decision on whether or not to call in the application only if the Strategic Planning Committee resolves to grant permission. A management plan for the operation of the facility is to be agreed through Section 106 agreement. Details will capture and secure everything from the opening hours and cleaning of the public toilets to the operational side of the interpretation room, and importantly, how the facility will be managed to ensure the public benefits detailed in the report are secured. Members to note on the update that to enhance the proposed development's public benefit offer, it is considered appropriate to secure public use of the proposed interpretation room without charge between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Monday to Friday, and by appointment at other times. This is considered appropriate given the range of groups who are likely to wish to use the facility. So the recommendation is, therefore, that the application be delegated to the head of planning to complete the list of conditions and secure the Section 106 agreement detailed in the recommendation in the report and release planning permission. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks, David. We've got quite a list of speakers now. So first one is Heather Peacock.
Okay, Chair, I'll try and...
Okay, thank you.
Right, Heather, you've got 3 minutes and your 3 minutes starts now.
I wish to object to the application on the basis of Castle Hill is a scheduled and ancient monument. This means it's of national importance. Also, I doubt it comes under the exceptions for building on a green belt. Castle Hill is known and seen daily by most people in Huddersfield. It's like a compass point to us. With its legends of a golden cradle, a dragon and a devil, it's become part of our collective consciousness, and it's the most important archaeological area in Huddersfield. My grandchildren look for it when we've been away on holiday to know that we're nearly home. We've had amazing times there. It's a special place. The hill has been a settlement for 4,000 years. Mesolithic, Neolithic, Bronze Age people settled there. The Iron Age people built a fort there. Archaeologists believe that in Roman times it was a stronghold to the Queen of the Brigantes. Roman coins were also found there. A castle with a moat and bailey were built by the de Lacy family. The hill became the side of the warning beacon, which in 1588 it told the people of Huddersfield about the Spanish Armada. Then again, in the Napoleonic Wars. There's been mass gatherings there. Both the Chartists and Separatists protested there. During the Great Weavers' Strike, 3,000 people met there. The Victoria Tower was built in 1898. My own grandfather manned an anti-aircraft battery there in the Second World War. Castle Hill is so important to the people of Huddersfield. 4,000 years of history has happened on this hill. Disturbing the area for a new development, knowing what's happened before, could be disastrous for Castle Hill. Please reject this planning application. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Heather.
Thank you, bye.
Bye. Next is Martin Kilburn.
Okay, that's great. Many thanks.
Hi, Martin. You've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of speaking. I'm Martin Kilburn, and I'm here as a committee member representing Huddersfield Civic Society and its members. As everyone connected with this application, including Huddersfield Civic Society, keeps repeating, the proposed development is wholly inappropriate for numerous reasons, including green belt policy and prediction of heritage assets. Our society has submitted detailed and lengthy objections, which I won't repeat today, you'll be pleased to hear. The proposed development represents the construction of a development requiring approval for town centre use in the physical centre of a nationally important scheduled monument, Castle Hill, despite its substandard access. Castle Hill is recognised as a very rare and important combination of features. It's a univalent hill fort, which was much later converted to a multivalent hill fort. It's a Mott and Bailey castle of significant size. It's the site of a medieval village. It's highly visible atop a prominent geological feature. Whilst many of us will not fully understand the significance of these features, they are such that Castle Hill is the only example of this in the north of England, and there's only a handful across the rest of the country. As such, the site should be preserved, not turned into a commercial hospitality venue. I urge the committee to recognise the significance of historic England maintaining its strong objection to the development. This is a statutory consultee. It's responsible for the protection of national heritage assets such as Castle Hill. Historic England has clearly stated it maintains its objection to the development, as the case for approval has not been made. They go on to point out that the applicant has held no discussions with them since January this year on the very numerous concerns Historic England have raised. Despite this, the report before the committee puts the application forward for approval against the advice of a statutory consultee. The suggestion is that the approval be granted subject to a condition that Schedule Ancient Monument consent is obtained, along with an enormous list of other matters to be covered. I've very nearly finished. With respect to, in this case, putting the cart before the horse, because the application should be considered when these matters have been resolved, not at this point. I strongly request that the members decline this application, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Next, we have Gloria Humphreys.
Turn the sound off.
Right, Gloria, you've got 3 minutes and it starts from now.
As the number of parking places has been reduced, will the public still be allowed to park their cars at all times, regardless of whether the places are needed for the hotel? I always say there's been a traffic survey in September, and the reduced number of parking places would be enough. Perhaps someone should tell Highways that we've been in some form of lockdown for months, and we've not been able to visit Castle Hill to meet family and friends and enjoy the view and the company. So any survey is a complete waste of paper. As a disabled person, will I always be able to use the disabled parking places? There's a danger for people with small children for walking up the hill on the small narrow lanes with cars travelling on it. How can the Department of Ecology say that there will be damage done and at the same time ask for compensation? How can money help the wildlife and fauna and flora of the Castle Hill or protect the green belt? The applicant suggests that the rooms would be available for educational for up to 30 people. I like the way it says suggests and not would. As many classes have 30 children or more, where would the teachers and the other helpers go? Would they be able to get a bus with children up to the site? Surely we would be naive to think that it will be shut down and not used for parties and weddings at all times.
what would the opening hours be? Are there any plans to ensure that the residents in the surrounding areas and village will not be disturbed when people leave? Where will the sewerage go? I cannot see anything on the plans. How can they put new pipes anywhere without disturbing the hill? Will there be lights outside the buildings that can be seen on a night? Will toilets be accessible from outside? So many questions asked by agency, councillors and public, but most seem to get the reply, these will be sorted after planning is granted. That's not good enough. Planning talks a lot about public benefits, but the only people that seem to benefit from this are not the people of Huddersfield, but the developers. Please listen to the agents, the people and the councillors in the surrounding districts and areas and say no. Take care of our heritage and for many, this symbol of Huddersfield, which we are proud of.
You wrap up, please.
How can you think of putting a building with a zinc roof, which planners say could subdue in time,
up, please, you've had 3 minutes.
And avoid reflection? It is the could be that I'm not happy about. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Right. Just going to change timer over now from 3 minutes to 5 minutes. Next, we've got Councillor Monroe.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'd just like to say, I'd like to comment on this application as follows. Kirklees are the guardians of this scheduled ancient monument and Grade 2 listed Victoria Tower. It has a rich history. The site is just as significant as other hill forts such as Maiden Castle. Its significance cannot be underestimated. As guardians, Kirklees are under a duty of care to protect this site and ensure the right things are done for the right reasons. This site and its tower are Huddersfield's crown jewels. They are priceless. They are iconic. They are not only part of our rich local heritage, but they are part of our national heritage. They are unique and they are non-negotiable. These famous landmarks together distinguish Huddersfield and Kirklees from other towns and areas across Britain, yet little of this is evident in this report. Of course, it follows, therefore, that any planning application should adequately, appropriately and robustly deal with the smallest detail, leaving no stone unturned. This is so everyone is fully aware of the issues when making such a significant decision as the one you are being asked to make today. There has been no prior consultation with councillors in relation to the revised plans before us today. It is apparent the committee are suddenly being propelled towards making a momentous decision with very little time to prepare and reflect, and I question why this might be. This remains, after all, a commercial venture, but little of this is made in this report. The detailed report before the committee today lists all the negative facts, then expresses the negatives are now justified, such as 10.15, where officers consider that non-compliance with local plan policies LP13 and LP16, provision of main town centre uses at the site, is now justified as it demonstrates and delivers significant public benefits without the need for a sequential test. It is not clear what has significantly changed in this case to justify this. Certainly, Huddersfield Town Centre has continued to deteriorate over the last year with even more shop closures, and the blueprint will take years to come to fruition. The council even provides free parking for 2 hours in the town centre in order to encourage people and businesses into the town. It seems the benefits to the public of this scheme that are being relied upon to justify this non-compliance are some employment opportunities, but these could be provided in any location. A formal car park, well, when there is one already, a few passing places on the access road, which will still be incredibly dangerous, and an information room where such information could be provided via smart technologies and new information boards. And public toilets, I'll mention those in a moment. These are fairly flimsy reasons, and I do not accept that they are sufficiently significant to overcome clear planning policies in the local plan. The list of positive benefits follows, and this equates to some employment opportunities and some benefits to regeneration. So, in relation to greenbelt developments, what are the very special circumstances that are considered to outweigh harm? I have surrounding hills with pleasant views over the town, which could provide the same, perhaps even with views actually from inside the cafe. So what actual significance can then be given to this? While several passing places have been proposed along the access lane, which could make access easier for everyone, this road is a potentially dangerous road, and I do not believe the council could be considering more vehicle use. What significance can this be given? Then, of course, there is the proposed formal car park. There already is a substantial car park on the site, which has capacity for 100 vehicles. I'd just like to finish off by saying I have previously referred to the issues with vehicles travelling to the site. The public bus service is infrequent. The world has moved on since a decision in principle was agreed on this site. Many shops and businesses have closed permanently in Huddersfield town centre. We live in a digitalised world where we receive information via our phones, tablets and watches. The council have declared a climate emergency and our carbon footprint needs to be reduced to 0 by 2038. I am of the firm belief that this current application does not justify approval. The arguments put forward are flimsy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councillor McGuinn.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I do not like the fact that this important decision is being rushed through under these conditions after 3 years of negotiation between Historic England and the developers has not resulted in an agreement about what should be put on top of the Castle Hill. The planning issues here are clear. We have Greenbelt for a reason. It is acknowledged that any building on Castle Hill will be harmful, as acknowledged in the report. As well as being harmful, it will affect the openness of the Greenbelt, contrary to national building guidelines. The iconic Victoria Tower setting will be badly affected by a building that resembles a branch of McDonald's, in my opinion, though of course beauty is in the eye of the beholder. The hill is a national monument and, as a comparison, would you put this in the middle of Stonehenge? The monument setting would be irrevocably destroyed, please excuse me, would be irrevocably destroyed by any attempt to improve access to this national monument. There are many other planning issues, as mentioned by Councillor Monroe, for instance, that ought to prevent development. But I want to point out the lack of discussion with councillors about the supposed public benefits of this development. Throughout the last 3 years, we as councillors have been led to believe that the development would not be allowed because the damage caused by the new development outweighed any benefit to the people. 3 weeks ago, I was astounded to find out the case officer who had been talking to us about this planning issue for years, has been replaced, and that Kirklees planning were now going to propose acceptance of this. The report does not reflect the recommendation to accept, so I have to ask myself, who is pushing for this development? The impression here is that the business or commercial aspects have been considered more important than culture and heritage loss to the borough. I cannot accept that. If you pass this, you'll be guilty of condoning full-scale vandalism on a much-loved site. The recommendation is perverse, as we have been talking about the road up to Castle being blocked off at night. We've been all the councillors in the area have been consulted on this, and I think we're all in agreement that the legal move to block off Castle Hill is good. They've also consulted on bringing a refreshment van up to Castle Hill to provide food, particularly in summer. These two decisions, supported by myself, show that Kirklees seem to be talking with confused tongues. The question is why? Who would want, for example, to destroy the volunteer base these people who go up there in their own time to look after the hill, why they've told me that if this decision goes through, they will not go up there again, because they think the decision, if any decision is made to develop it, it shows that the Kirklees do not care about a national monument, do not care about their local heritage. So therefore, I'm asking you, please, when you come to decide, please vote for the town, vote for the borough, vote against this proposal. Thank you very much.
Right, thanks, Bernard. Next is Councillor Davis.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hi. I'm going to keep my comments brief because I think we've had a lot of we've had a lot of discussion about the technicalities and all of this. But I do want to say that I oppose this development for a number of reasons. I don't need to remind you of Castle Hill's scheduled ancient monument status, the beauty of its setting for the Grade 2 listed Victoria Tower. This proposed development will impact upon the setting of this open space, spoiling not only the view for people from Castle Hill, but will impact the views and outlook for miles around of those looking onto Castle Hill. The revised building is still inappropriate visually for the site, and the proposed services it offers do not add enough benefits to the area to warrant development on a greenbelt site, nor does it warrant the irreversible excavation and disruption to the scheduled ancient monuments. I think, we've already heard there's 4,000 years of history there that we're going to dig up if we're not careful. The provision of electric vehicle charging points in the planning request will only drive further the excavation required at the site in getting increased power to the area. The development will also impact on the access route to the top of Castle Hill. Firstly, the visibility at the junction between Castle Hill and Ashes Lane is very poor. There has been a serious collision there recently, and increased traffic and use of the junction will increase the likelihood of accidents up there. The roadway at Castle Hillside is narrow. Visibility with the junction at Lum Lane is poor, and there is little opportunity for improvement without further disruption and destruction of the site and the disturbance of the wildlife in the area. The roadside is, as we've said, it's of substantial width. A proposed passing place would not allow for a service vehicle to pass a car. That will increase reversing movements, increase accidents as well. And aside from the traffic and the use, it is a wild and beautiful site. It is a shame that the previous public house was brought down, but it has become wild, and it is such an open area now. It's become a symbol of Huddersfield. It's a treasured open space used by a lot of the residents and visitors to the area. I do understand there is a need for improved facilities at the site, including the provision of WCs for the use of the public, but I do not think this application is appropriate, and so I request that approval is declined. Please don't pay paradise to put up a cafe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Lee Richards.
Right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. I fully agree with the previous speakers about the wildness of Castle Hill and its open site and its very special place within Huddersfield and Kirklees and nationally for that matter. It is the first place that I take any visitors so that they can stand on that windy hill and enjoy the open aspect and the view. Sorry, I've got a sore throat. And the view right across the whole of the area. I mean, as other people have said, it's excuse me, I've not ever spoken at one of these before. It is a scheduled ancient monument, and it is not just the space, it is the whole hill that is special. It is in the middle of Greenbelt. It's a heritage asset. It is very significant nationally, as was mentioned by Martin Kilburn earlier. And anything put on top of that hill will have a visual impact and will be seen from miles around. It's special because of the local wildlife. It's triple SI site nearby. It's green flag. It's got so many positive benefits that it should not be built upon. You know, I don't believe that this application does anything to overcome the harm that it will create, the significant harm. These are not very special circumstances. You know, people go up there and have known that there have been no toilets up there and no public house for 15 years, and it hasn't deterred people from visiting. I think having a pub, restaurant, bedrooms up there will not make it more attractive. I think it will probably put off many people because they won't have the same access that they used to at the moment. I feel that Castle Hill is a sort of green jewel in the crown of Kirklees, and we should be safeguarding it for future generations, not allowing it to be damaged and destroyed by digging into a scheduled ancient monument. It's even seen on Look North at the beginning of every news bulletin. You see Castle Hill, like jewel in the crown. I don't want to see it with a building that's inappropriate sat next to Victoria Tower, which is Grade 2 listed. Also, I think that the documents, having looked at them, the documents before the Strategic Planning Committee, almost everything seems to be nearly entirely in opposition of development on this site, and yet there seem to be just a few statements which are trying to ride roughshod over all the failings against the National Planning Policy Framework. As an illustration, on page 63, 1019, the officers appear to be suggesting that that the application carries positive weight and recognises public benefit, but this is not quantified. There's lots of generic information. Where is the evidence that this overrides the harm that it will cause? And also on two of the policy LP13, town centre use, there's been no sequential test. This appears to fly in the face of our council's own LP13 by ignoring sequential testing against the commercial development, which states that proposals will come forward. Proposals of this sort which come forward should require that test. And where's the evidence that this has been done? I've had complaints from residents about the possibilities of noise and light reflected from the building, late night openings, people coming.
30 seconds.
Right, and finally on LP16, food and drink and the night economy. What about other businesses? There are facilities at Armonbury and Newsome, Farnley, Tyres and the town centre. There are plenty of places for people to eat and drink before they go and visit this magnificent wild and open space. We should be guardians, as Councillor Munro said. We should be protecting and preserving this wonderful site for future generations, not desecrating it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Right, thank you. Next is Councillor Andrew Cooper.
Thank you. The job of the applicants here today is to demonstrate that there are very special circumstances that somehow override the fact that this would ordinarily be regarded as inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. I would love to see the old pub back, but the applicants wantonly demolished it 15 years ago, believing they were above the law. Now they want us to trust them with a place which is sacred to the people of Huddersfield. That aside, there are still overwhelming reasons to oppose this application for a commercial development on Castle Hill. The following organisations or departments have come out in opposition to the application. The West Yorkshire Archaeological Advisory Service. They say, concerned regarding the indirect impact to the setting, significance and appreciation and use of the monument caused by the scale of customer parking and hard landscaping around the building. There are 37 parking spaces proposed, yet close to 100 covers are proposed, and staff will require parking places. Kirklees Council Museums and Gallery Service has said, although providing public access, visitor facilities and information is very important, this must be balanced with conservation of a scheduled ancient monument, and other ways could be considered to deliver these outcomes. Kirklees Council's own landscape team. The proposal as is cannot be supported. Proposal would be highly visible from the surrounding area, and it should be more sympathetic, and should have less of an adverse visual impact. Kirklees Council's own conservation and design team. There is no evidence provided that shows that the level of facilities proposed are required, or whether a reduced but acceptable level of facility be provided by a smaller building. Historic England. The application does not meet the requirements of National Planning Policy Framework, in particular paragraphs numbers 189, 190, 192, 193, 194 and 196. The Council for British Archaeology Yorkshire. The proposed development, due to its nature, extent and purpose, is entirely inappropriate for this location. And CPRE, the Campaign to Protect Rural England, object on principle to the development. And more importantly, the vast majority of the public are strongly objecting to this application. Given this, it is bizarre indeed that there is a recommendation for approval here before the Planning Committee today. You would not build a commercial development on top of Glastonbury Tor, or as Councillor McGuinn said, at Stonehenge, or at Skara Brae on Orkney. But somehow this Greenbelt site, this scheduled ancient monument, this site of special scientific interest impact zone, a local wildlife site, a local geological site, is regarded as fair game for a commercial restaurant and hotel. The so-called very special circumstances given to approved development are public benefit. Yet the vast majority of the public simply don't want it. Yes, we are promised toilets and an interpretation centre, but these are simply not very special circumstances. They would be nice, yes, but are not essential and are being offered as a Trojan horse for the desecration of a place the people of Huddersfield hold dear. They are not very special circumstances. They are simply an inducement to accept the unacceptable. There is enough evidence provided in this report to turn this development down today. Do we really want to leave it to the Secretary of State in London to protect Castle Hill when we have local councillors with the power to stop it now? What would it say about our local democracy if we had to rely on a government minister to save us from the decisions of our own local politicians?
Is that it, Andrew?
That's it. Please oppose this development.
Right, thank you. Cheers. Next is Councillor Donald Firth.
He's got his microphone and I just can't hear him, can you?
No.
I think we've lost him. Do you want to go on, Don? He's got his hand up.
We can't hear you, Donald. We're having a problem.
Move on and we'll see if we can get IT to try and get back to him.
We'll try and get IT to sort you out, Donald. I'll go to Malcolm Sizer.
Right, just bear with me, I'll just change the clock and then.
Right, Malcolm, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you, Chair. I'm reading this statement on behalf of Kevin Drayton, consultant at 117 Architects and Interior Designers, in support of the application. Castle Hill is Kirklees' most important heritage asset. It's visible from miles around, is of national significance and an iconic focus for local people. Its lack of visitor facilities has been lamented, but neither the Council nor Historic England are in a position to fund or operate them. Private investment could provide them if a commercial element were included. Discussions began between key stakeholders several years ago, and the principle of a proposal emerged. A formal pre-application inquiry was heard in October 2017, and this showed sufficient support to make it worth developing the scheme to a full application. 3 years of discussion, collaboration, negotiation and redesign ensued with Kirklees Council, Historic England and other stakeholders. The aim was no detrimental effect on the heritage asset, its setting, the archaeology and views into and out of the site. Planning law classifies any proposal as harmful, but if the harm is minimal and is counterbalanced by significant public benefit, planning law permits it to be approved. The public benefits include free access to high-quality toilet facilities with full disability access, provision of shelter, availability of hot and cold refreshments, information on Castle Hill, its history, archaeology, flora and fauna externally and internally, a dedicated interpretation room for school children, special interest and community groups, 24-hour, 365 days a year supervisory presence on the hill, improved access and parking, employment generation and increased economic activity, increased profile and prestige for Kirklees. The design is not a commercial scheme with some public facilities tacked on. Everything is integral to provide flexibility and maximise opportunities to enhance the visitor experience. We have demonstrated the minimal nature of the harm that would be done and balance this against the extensive public
10
benefits.
seconds.
We believe the case has been made and most respectfully request that the application be supported. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, Malcolm. Have we got Donald Firth yet?
I think we're still trying to get through to him.
Oh. Right, Jim Robinson. Afternoon, Tim.
Okay, then. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I've got 3 minutes and your time starts now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chair, members. There are two key issues which I believe, from a highways point of view, are material considerations that will hopefully assist you in making a decision on this application. The first one is access. The access road leading up to the plateau is restricted in terms of its width, with limited places for vehicles to pass. Due to the topography of the site, there is little opportunity available to widen the access road along its length or at its junction with Lum Lane. However, during the Creek. These subtle changes are considered to be proportionate, sympathetic and respectful to the monument status of the development site. Members, I refer you to paragraphs 10.90 and 10.91 of the committee report. The other key issues with the development is the potential impact on the parking for those visitors who use Castle Hill for other leisure activities. The forecasted trip rate for the development have been agreed with your highways officers. Monday, 13th of September, to ascertain existing patterns at Castle Hill. This represents 20 hours of survey data.
Tim, we're going to have to stop you. One of our members is saying we can't hear you. So, yeah, can you hear, Carol?
No.
Nobody can hear you, Tim. We'll start you off again.
I couldn't hear anything.
Right. Right, I'll give you 3 minutes again. Sorry about that. Set you off again, Tim. See if we can hear you.
Thank you, Chair. So start again, members. So there are two key issues which I believe, from a highways point of view, are material considerations that will hopefully assist you in making a decision on this application. The first one is access. The access road leading up to the plateau is restricted in terms of its width, with limited places for vehicles to pass. Due to the topography of the site, there is a little opportunity available to widen the access road along its length or at its junction with Lum Lane. However, during a site visit with highways officers Steve Sampson and Jamie Turner early on in 2019, we identified 3 areas along the access road where localised widenings could be provided and marked out as formal passing places. The alterations will be no more than about 600 millimetres, 2 feet, but that increase provides the necessary width to allow 2 vehicles to pass more easily, particularly a service vehicle and a private car. The widenings involve minor alterations to the toe of the embankment on the left as you climb up towards the top of Castle Hill using a geotextile product called Truck Cell, manufactured locally in Meltham by a company called ABG. It is similar, members, to the more widely known product called Grasscrete. These subtle changes are considered to be proportionate, sympathetic and respectful to the monument status of the site. Members, I refer you to paragraphs 10.90 and 10.91 of the committee report for more detail. The other key issue with the development is the potential impact on parking for those visitors who use Castle Hill for other leisure activities. The forecasted trip rates for the development have been agreed with your highways officers to understand what the future parking demand would be. That includes a 100 cover restaurant. Parking surveys have also been undertaken by an independent parking survey company between the hours of 11 AM and 9 PM on Saturday 5th of September and 13th of September, which is a Sunday, to ascertain existing parking patterns at Castle Hill. This represents 20 hours of survey data. Analysing these results and sharing them with your planning and highways officers led to further discussions and an exercise to look at various weekend scenarios relating to a 90 cover restaurant, 80 cover, 70 and 60 cover restaurant to accommodate existing and future parking provision. From these discussions, it suggested capping the number of covers will be a more preferred option, reducing the likelihood of parking exceeding car park capacity at peak times. Members, I draw your attention to 10.94, 10.95, 10.96 and 10.97 of the report. So what you have in front of you, therefore, members, is a reduced development proposal that relates to a 70 cover cafe stroke restaurant as opposed to 100 covers. In conclusion, members, section 12 of the report suggests a number of reasonable practical highway-related conditions that should hopefully give you the necessary comfort to follow the planning officer's recommendation and vote in favour of development. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Councillor Firth, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me out there? Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Thank goodness for that. I don't know. Anybody got a picture of me yet? No?
No, I can remember what you look like.
You can? All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're all right.
Right. I'll go with that one. I'll go with that one. Right. Well, first of all, I'm on today to speak against the planning application 2018 /9359-1, restaurant, cafe, bar, 6 guest rooms and parking, etc. Now, thinking about Castle Hill and the rest of it, was or is an heritage site. It's a heritage site. It's a site where wildlife heritage, and of course, it's a very important wildlife site as well. So I can't get my head around why we need to build anything on an area which is already in a green belt. In 2005, when the old public house was destroyed, vandalised really, it was destroyed, it was made back into the green belt in 2005, and since then it's basically been a site for local people to it's probably one of the last areas of high landscape value and natural beauty in South Kirklees. You've got to remember, most of our areas, specifically on Valley North and South, have since been built on. Greenfields are now covered with houses and concrete. So let's at least we're trying to preserve areas that need preserving now, rather than let it all go. Let's start now. And I would suggest that, you know, instead of having all this business of a restaurant, and basically a bar and cafe, etc. I'm sure that on a good sunshiny day, somebody up there in a little van selling ice would be well welcomed. And of course, that's the whole thing about it is he'd be licensed to sell his wares from the top car park on certain days, for instance, Saturdays and Sundays. It probably happens now, I don't know. But these days, when the weather is good and we've got no coronavirus, people will visit to admire the views, picnic, fly their kites, and generally have fun and a family day outing. I would advise the committee that it needs to think seriously long and hard on this application. Hopefully by now most of you will have made a decision, but it is vital that you make the right decision, remembering that 15 years ago, the site was brought back into the green belt in 2005. And obviously, it's in a conservation area next door to a Grade A, Grade 2 listed building, i.e. the tower, the Victoria Tower. Since that time, it's always been popular for families and fun. Please don't spoil something that is good for everyone and works well. Looking at the plans for the replacement, it doesn't fit well with the Victoria Tower, which was built in and around 1897. It was built for Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, although it shouldn't be called the Jubilee Tower. In fact, the building was inaugurated on the 24th of June 1899. It was designed by Isaac Jones of London, built by Graham and Sons of Folio, and it was sort of fairly common. Local people built it out of local stone from the quarries at Crossland Moor. So let's be fair, this new building, it's everything that new buildings have, totally featureless, and it does need depositing anyway, but don't put it on Castle Hill. Please, please, when voting, think what you're voting for. If the vote goes wrong way, future generations will have to put up with a 21st century eyesore sat adjacent to the historic 19th century Victoria Tower. And remember this, we're setting a precedence for building in the green belt as well. You can come up with all the excuses, officers can have all the excuses they need. They're trying to make every excuse to this to get it built and get it passed. Well, I'm sorry, I would think you've got more sense than that, this committee, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you for listening, everybody. Thank you,
No
Stephen.
problem. Thanks, Donald. See you later.
Thank you. Yeah, you will.
Right. To finish off with, we're back to Malcolm Sizer as himself.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
You've
Cheers.
3 minutes and it starts off now.
Thank you very much, Chair. Malcolm Sizer, I'm a planning consultant acting on behalf of the applicant. Back in October 2017, the Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee considered in-principle proposals for development at Castle Hill. As set out at section 5.2 of your officer's report, members' broad consensus was that Castle Hill would benefit from additional facilities for visitors, but recognised that a viable business would be needed to deliver them. Members also felt that a low-rise, modern, contemporary design approach was appropriate. Kevin Drayton, the architect, in the statement that I read on his behalf, emphasises the long negotiations undertaken to arrive at the current scheme. It also sets out the public benefits that will arise. In my view, and clearly in the view of your officers, the proposals now before you properly address the issues previously identified by members. The third matter rightfully raised by members was that any new facility would, by definition, be harmful to the Greenbelt, and therefore that very special circumstances would need to be demonstrated to outweigh that harm. At paragraph 1017 of their report, officers set out that very special circumstances have, in their view, been demonstrated in the form of various public benefits, in part referred to earlier. They would need to be secured, enforceable and maintained in perpetuity through a Section 106 agreement. Subject to such agreement, your officers recommend approval, and I would urge you to accept that recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you.
Right, members, it's over to you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. I will be quite brief, I think, in my comments, or hopefully so. I am convinced by the public benefit that this development will. I do believe that the design is far better than that which we saw previously. And it does provide amenities on top of the Castle Hill, which I do feel the public want and are sorely needed. I certainly know I've hardly been up there in recent years, and if I have, it's been a really brief time. It doesn't. The car parks and the access are not in good shape, and it's not a good place to go and view the whole of our wonderful town. So I'm pleased to see that the access would be improved and maintained, I trust, as well. And I believe that there is, I mean, all the history that there has been identified, which I recognise, I would like to think that it would be quite good to have some 21st century history on this site, and that hopefully the building would be a significant value to provide that. I hope the footpaths can be maintained and improved. And finally, in conclusion, I'd just like to say that I'd much rather see some controlled provision of facilities, food, drink, etc., than uncontrolled vans, ice cream vans, hot dog stands turning up on top of the hill. So I think it's a far better scheme than we've seen previously, and I will support the application. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Councillor Patrick.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I spent this morning looking through this report, reading through this report, and a bit like Councillor Cooper, the further and further I got into the report, the more convinced I was that it should be turned down. There's so many reasons in this report for turning it down. I was struggling to find the reasons that the officers, the evidence the officers had found to recommend approval. Eventually, I did get to it, and I think I've got 5 or 6. They're not all planning reasons, though. The first one was that the council's economy, regeneration and culture team like it. I don't think that's material consideration. The second one was that the council cannot afford to spend more money at the site, although there's a paragraph in there from Parks which says they're going to invest a bit more money in the site. The third one was the development wouldn't prevent minerals being quarried, which I thought was a bit bizarre. But anyway, the fourth one quoted Historic England from 2017. Some of the opportunities expressed by Historic England, but I note that in this report also Historic England maintains its objection to these proposals. They object to these proposals, and I've heard quite a lot from Mr. Wordsworth and various other people about Historic England's involvement in pre-discussions over the last several months, but they still maintain an objection, and I think that is really important to take note of that. And then the fifth one, of course, was the public benefits, and I like some of the speakers don't think that the public benefits that are being emphasised are really that special. I don't think they're special at all. When you look at the report, virtually all of our internal Kirklees Council consultees are non-committal. They don't say one way or the other whether they support it or don't support it. There was only Public Rights of Way, Kirklees Council Landscapes and Strategic Drainage who opposed it. And Highways, of course, supported it, but they seem to support everything when we get to planning applications. And I know some of you are laughing at that, but I'm afraid you lose confidence when that happens. The applicant's prime reason, of course, for this development is commercial, and there's nothing wrong in that in itself. But given the planning history of the site, and all the special reasons why it should be protected, I'm not convinced at all that there are very special circumstances. A lot of these tourist elements you can find elsewhere, like you can find at Tolson at the moment, and when the new museum stroke gallery is eventually built in Huddersfield, the story can be told there. And in fact, I would have thought that the council would have been keen to bring tourism into Huddersfield. You know, you can still go up to the tower and see everything for yourself up there, and then go and visit a fantastic new gallery stroke museum in Huddersfield. And then Huddersfield itself will benefit from it there. Apart from those kind of things that I've just mentioned, two things jump out at me about the actual construction of this site. It's all very well saying there's only one floor appears above ground, but there's 2 floors to be built below ground, and that will require the excavation of a very big hole. A much bigger hole will be required to build those 2 stories below ground than is actually needed to build them, if you understand what I mean. And that construction activity is going to affect a much wider area than the sort of archaeological sterile area that people talk about, i.e. the footprint of the old pub. So I can see why the archaeology people are against it. I can see why Historic England are against it. I can see why the vast majority of the public are against it. And I'm afraid, I'm not afraid. I don't think we should be supporting this at all. We should be keeping well clear of it. It should be refused. And I do not believe the council, the local planning authority, has for 1 minute provided sufficient evidence of special circumstances in order to recommend an approval. So I will recommend refusal. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with a lot with what Councillor Patrick's just said. I mean, the pub went 15 years ago. The only public benefit I can see from this proposal is actually toilets. But then again, would them toilets actually be public? Could you just go in and use the toilets when the pub was there, or did you have to buy a drink or whatever, like you do in most places? Also, the officer mentioned bedrooms being breakout rooms as well instead. I'm not quite sure how that works, because surely if it's a bedroom, there's a bed in it. So I once thought you'd use it as a breakout room. I completely do understand the commercial side of it. I mean, you know, my parents have a bed and breakfast, and obviously, so I do understand that bit. But like I say, 15 years is a long time. There's not been anything up there. I completely agree that the pub shouldn't have been demolished in the first place. And I think it probably was down to bad maintenance as well as bad management. You know, I don't look at it through rose-tinted glasses. I know the pub wasn't in perfect shape. This building they're looking at proposing, sort of looking at, as Councillor McGuinn described it, as a glorified looking McDonald's. Well, somebody who saw saw the picture actually described it to me as it looks like a glorified bus stop. So I'm really you know, I think it's way too modern. You know, the stone, it's just absolutely out of keeping. It is Greenbelt. I can't see any special circumstances, and to be honest, if Councillor Patrick's proposed refusal, I'll quite happily second that, because I honestly just don't understand it. And plus the lack of a reduction in car parking doesn't seem to make any sense to me either. But I would actually like an answer on how a bedroom become a breakout room as well. Thank you.
Thanks to Councillor Pinnock.
Right, thank you, Chair. You will not be surprised to hear that I did actually visit the site yesterday. It would have been better if I'd gone on Monday, frankly, but because I got wet and it was really very windy. But that in itself is an indication of the type of site we're dealing with. It's quite exposed, but on the other hand, it gives some really good views. I will make no bones about this and say that I think we should refuse this application, and I will explain why. Somebody said, and I think somebody said earlier on today that the trend, not only here but in other places as well, has been to remove buildings from sites like this, either where they're scheduled ancient monuments or are something similar. It just seems to me that quite a lot of important scheduled ancient monuments have got no facilities at all. And I mean, I used it when we had the pre-app discussion last year. I introduced the example of Maiden Castle in Dorset, where there are no facilities whatsoever and only a very small car park. The site itself is left to express itself, as it were, without any encumbrances. One of the things that worries me, somebody mentioned that this is, unlike Maiden Castle, this is a univalate hill fort. In other words, it's only got one bank. And it seems to me, looking at the design, that there is a danger that the development will actually break into that bank, and that's just not on at all. I think that is a complete destruction, if you like, of the scheduled ancient monument. So I don't think we can allow that, frankly. That sort of talks about the ability and the sense of redeveloping the site at all. But I think there is another issue, and that is the access to the site, which is appalling. When I came down from the hill yesterday, I wanted to go up Lum Lane, and you can't actually turn left at the bottom of Castle Hill side. You've got to go into the lay-by, turn round, and then go down. And that implies that junction is really quite dangerous. And it's already been mentioned that the junction with Ashes Lane has a bit of an accident record, and I suspect that an increase in traffic would tend to increase the possibility of altercations, shall we say, without some considerable alleviation of it. Public benefit, well, I'm not, like other members, I'm not convinced about public benefit, because I as Councillor Cooper said, that the things might be accepted, but they're not essential. And I've already mentioned Maiden Castle with no toilets. Quite a lot of other places have got no toilets either. And I know there are people who might not like that, but you've then got to find somewhere else to put them that is not actually on the site itself. Anything like that needs to be off the site and leaving the site to tell you its own story. So I would certainly wish to refuse this. It's been moved and seconded. I think we should mention the fact that it's a scheduled ancient monument, the fact that it's in a green belt, and the highways issues, which I don't think, despite what was said, can actually be alleviated satisfactorily, and remove the problem of conflicts between people, pedestrians that is, and vehicles, and between different sorts of vehicles. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we all know that antisocial behavior and crime, including vandalism, is a regular occurrence at Castle Hill. In recent years, vandalism, fire, use of fireworks, theft of stone flags, and noisy gathering have occurred there. Most recently, I think we forgot some member, most recently up to 200 parties, even in the pandemic days, party at Huddersfield beauty spot and scorching temperatures. And revelers left behind cans, bottles, laughing gas, canister at Castle Hill. Who pay the cost to clean up this mess? It is Huddersfield shocked residents. They pay for the cost. Mr. Chairman, the only solution to deter such activity is the proposed new building with 24-hour permanently staffed facility at Castle Hill. And this proposed building, well designed and low level, will provide visitor center for additional facilities for visitors, including toilets, somewhere to eat and drink, and interpretation. WC provision, we very rarely get these. WC provision, male and female, will be free to use by public member 7 days a week between 10 and 11. It's in the report. Yeah, it's not mine. Also, provision of public accessible WC attracts significant positive weight as it would help increase and diversify the range of people who can comfortably visit Castle Hill, including young children and older people. This is a public benefit, Mr. Chair. Again, shelter. During the bad weather, visitors would be able to take shelter within the proposed building and outside under its overhanging eaves. This would attract positive weight. Refreshment provision. Again, this provision could further increase and diversify the range of people who can comfortably visit Castle Hill, which we are lacking these facilities there. This is another public benefit. I'm talking about the public benefit. Information board, applicant has suggested that these could be mounted on the wall flanking the building main entrance. These boards could provide detailed Castle Hill history. This proposal potentially attract positive weight. Interpretation room. This proposal attracts significant positive weight, and it is noted that this facility would be available for school groups, university societies, university of third age, and other party concerned with education. As Councillor Carroll said, education facility there. This is a big public benefit, Mr. Chair. There would be economic benefit resulting from the proposed development in terms of both direct and indirect employment and additional spend in Kirklees from tourists and visitors. Mr. Chair, these above said public benefit with proposed building will outweigh the issues of green belt and others. Historic England, although he says they maintain objection, but Historic England welcomed the positive changes to the building design and reduce level of harm to heritage because being there. Yeah. Historic England remains of the view that this important and sensitive site can benefit from the presence of built design and executed building and support the principle that a good quality development could provide valuable amenity including shelter, access to refreshment, public toilet, education and interpreting facility, and further positive management of the site, which we are lacking there now. Highways. You have heard access proposal which passing places are acceptable to the highway with further improvement. Yeah. This Kirklees Council Economy, Regeneration and Culture. This service is in support of the proposal as it will accommodate education, suit, interpretation, refreshment, and toilet. Also, applicant would invest in creating jobs. Also, proposed development supply chain benefit for local business. KC Environment, happy to support the recommended condition. West Yorkshire archaeologists the archaeological impact of the passing place can be dealt with by archaeologists' condition. Public benefit constitute very special circumstance, as I said before, constitute very special circumstances that justify the proposed development within the green belt. Mr. Chair, I fully support the officer recommendation to approve this application if with any other condition. So it haven't been moved by someone, so I move to approve the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Cathy Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make some comments on this, basically, because a lot's already been said. So strategic assets often become contentious when applications come forward. Public interest is often split, and I think you'll all agree about that, committee. I hear councillors speaking against the development, but I also note that there's no councillors here representing the general public that might be in favour of this. I've listened intently to what's been said today, and it's the hill that's the ancient monument, not the tower. It was a Victorian pub, which has already been stated, and the tower came in 1897-99. No one is suggesting to take away the hill. And throughout today, you've used the words, and people in that have actually spoken on this application have used the word settlements. Well, settlements have eateries too. There is employment opportunity and investment that we could have here. I listened to what Councillor Pinnock said, which was quite poignant. It was raining, it was windy up there, and it got soaked. Had there been somewhere to go and shelter, I'm sure you would have taken that opportunity. Schools are already attending the site, and there doesn't appear to be a problem. We're not taking it away. But if access to this site is so bad, are we saying that we should close off access for highway safety reasons, which I don't think would help? Despite issues being raised, it would appear that the applicant has worked with the council. And this looks, by going through the papers and doing the research, it's been over 10 years. Yes, mistakes have been made, but people keep harping back to the past. You can't do that. It's the application that's in front of you today that you are deciding on, that's being worked on, and you can't continually hold it against an applicant. We need to embrace the investment, and the people of Huddersfield, this is investment for you. There's often barriers for people to get to these facilities because there's lack of facilities. There's an opportunity for a facility to be put here, and we're striving about people's health. This is part of our ambition, health, mental health. Why not open it up? Because the barriers often when there is no facilities there for people to access. I hear the voice of the objectors, and I absolutely hear what you said today, but I also sat here today, I also represent the silent voice that isn't being represented today. I believe in supporting the officer's recommendation. It will only open this site up for better things. So I am supporting the officer's recommendations here today.
Thanks, Cathy. Any more? David, could you come back and just answer a query from Councillor Bellamy, which was the bedrooms being used as breakout rooms? Is that correct, or is it a printing query?
Chair. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, apparently there are a number of hotels up and down the country, particularly at close proximity to sporting arenas, that do have these kind of movable fixtures and fittings and semi-permanent walls and wardrobes. It isn't a new concept. It is something that is operational, and I think conference centres do have walls that moves around. It is possible to do that. It's just a case of moving the beds out and and the internal things of a bedroom and storing them, and that's it, Chair.
Thanks, David. Matthias.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to come in on the point that we've had a mover and a seconder for a refusal, which I think Councillor Andrew Pinnock set out some summarised reasons, which I think were pretty clear around not demonstrating very special circumstances, harm to heritage assets, and impact on highways. So I was literally coming in to just summarise that. Has been moved by Councillor Sokol, but not had a formal seconder to accept the recommendation. So that was where I'd summarise the move of the committee. Sorry to interrupt there, and I know Councillor Patrick is trying to come in. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Patrick.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to make a point that just in response to something Councillor Sokol said about who clears the site up when it gets untidy with the antisocial behaviour. The site's cleared up by the volunteers who have given representation and basically said if this is approved they won't go up on there anymore, which I think would be a crying shame because they do an awful lot of good work, a hell of a lot of work. They go up there, some of them go up there on a daily basis, and they don't all live locally. Some of them live in my ward. You know, I know of people who go up there on a daily basis and clear all sorts of stuff up, bag it up and take it away. So you know, this place it's loved by people across Kirklees, not just the locals. But if they don't volunteer, which I think it would be a crying shame if this gets approved and they don't volunteer, as one person said, then somebody else has got to clear it up. I don't think it'll be the hotel owners. I think it'll be left to Kirklees Council to clear it up. But I think it was important to make that point because I know the volunteers do a lot of good work, and I just want to say I recognise the work they do. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. I've got Cathy and then Carol, and then we'll try and make some progress one way or the other. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to formally second Councillor Sokol. I thought I had by moving the officer's recommendation supporting it. So just to be clear.
Right, thanks, Cathy. Councillor Pattison.
Yeah, I was just going to second it if Cathy hadn't. But I'd also just come back and point out that the visitor facilities or the interpretation facilities, etc., and the toilets and the shelter, it says in the report, will be available to the public free of charge from the recommendation is from officers 9 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, Carol. The first vote to be taken will be for refusal, but before we do take a vote, can we be clear on the points that were put forward by Councillor Patrick and Councillor Bellamy, and just make sure that it's tight with any comments from Matthias and from Deborah?
Thank you, Chair. So I captured, and please do correct me if I missed, that you do not think, for the refusal, that you do not think very special circumstances have been demonstrated, and therefore the inappropriate development and the harm. So there's a green belt reason on that. And then you think that the building will harm the historic assets there, the scheduled ancient monument and the listed building. And you also do not think that the impact on the highways has been suitably mitigated, and you think that a substantial harm, which I'm not sure I would advise you on that point, but if you want to accept it, it would be that there is substantial harm to highway safety that is not mitigated. So 3 reasons: greenbelt, heritage, highways, to summarise. Is that okay, Chair, Committee, for the refused move? Yeah, okay.
That's what I had as well, 3.
Those all right, Deborah?
Yeah, those were the 3 that I wrote down too.
Right. We'll go to the vote then for refusal. Richard.
Okay, thank you. So this is to vote for refusal with those three issues highlighted and summarised by Matthias. So if I can start, please, with Councillor Bellamy.
For refusal.
Councillor Patterson.
Against.
Councillor Patrick.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Scott.
Against.
Councillor Sokol.
Against.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Okay, so that's 3 that have voted for refusal, 4 have voted against refusal, so that motion has fallen.
So next we come to the officer's recommendation, which was moved by Councillor Sokol, seconded by Councillor Scott. We'll go to the vote again. Richard.
Okay, so
Chair, just to interrupt, just to include, this includes the conditions in the update report as well, setting out some of those other public benefits and the restrictions on the use and the hours that are in the update report as well. Just to be clear,
Yes.
that. Thank you, Chair. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. No, inclusive of the latest conditions in the update.
Okay,
Richard.
that's fine. Right, so we'll go to the vote on that basis. So if we go to Councillor Bellamy, please.
Against.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Patrick.
Against.
Councillor Pinnock.
Against.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
So that's 4 that have voted for the officer recommendation, 3 that have voted against, so officer recommendation is approved.
Thank you.
Can I just say that the Secretary of State should be notified now.
Right, thanks, Deborah. Right, members, it's up to you now. It's just gone 3:20. We can stop for 5 minutes if you want, or if you want, we can crack on. It's up to you. Put your hand up if you want 5 minutes. Put your hand
5
up.
minutes. 5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you.
Right, we'll take 5 minutes. So that'll be all right. 3:30. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, members, welcome back. We've got Victor again, and this time we're off to Owl Lane at Chidswell, which we've, so you know we've been there before. Oh, Victor, it's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, quite right. We have presented this application to Strategic Planning Committee before. This is an application for full planning permission for a residential development of 280 units. The applicant is Barratt Homes, and a position statement relating to this application was presented to committee on the 24th of October last year, when a 252 unit scheme was proposed with a different layout. So there's the site, and I'll just flip straight to an aerial view. The site was in the green belt, but with the adoption of the local plan and the relevant site allocation, it was taken out of the green belt. And in planning terms, the site is a previously undeveloped greenfield site, and it's the darker green field at the centre of this image. This is a site showing allocations in the local plan. Again, we're looking at the orange field in the middle of this image. The site is just under 8 hectares in size and is allocated as site HS47 for residential use. The site is to the southwest of the larger mixed-use allocated site MXS7, which is in red towards the top right-hand corner of this image, which is owned by the Church Commissioners for England and for which applications for outline planning permission are currently being considered by the council. The site is bounded by Owl Lane to the west, Windsor Road to the north, Chidswell Lane to the east, and the borough boundary shared with Wakefield to the south. Land to the south is in Wakefield's greenbelt. The site generally slopes downhill from north to south, as seen in this view from Owl Lane. That's the first of those two images there. The other image is of an existing gated entrance to the site on Chidswell Lane. This is the first image here is the Chidswell Lane Windsor Road junction, and the second image is a view further down Chidswell Lane, which illustrates its narrowness and the traffic calming speed humps that already exist along that lane. To the west of the site is Dewsbury Rams rugby ground and the recent Amberwood Chase residential development. To the north are residential properties. To the east is Chidswell Farm and its farm shop, as well as the Huntsman pub, agricultural fields, small woodland and residential properties. The site itself is a single field in agricultural use. No public rights of way across the site. The site has no TPO protected trees, but it does have perimeter hedgerows. So this is the current proposed layout. 280 dwellings are proposed, arranged either side of a new east-west spine road connecting a new roundabout on Owl Lane with the eastern edge of the site at Chidswell Lane. For the time being, a vehicular connection would not be made between the spine road and Chidswell Lane. That would come later as and when, or if and when, the Church Commissioners site to the northeast is developed. 2 open spaces are proposed at this current site, either side of the spine road, and a third open space is proposed at the site's southern tip, which is the lowest part of the site. In the revised unit size mix referred to in the committee update, residential units proposed would comprise 15 one-bedroom, 86 two-bedroom, 135 three-bedroom, and 44 four-bedroom units. Of those, 56 units would be affordable in the form of 14 one-bedroom apartments, 24 two-bedroom apartments, 12 two-bedroom houses, and 6 three-bedroom houses. This represents a 20% affordable housing provision. Dwellings would be detached, semi-detached, or provided in short terraces or in apartment blocks, all of which would be 2 or 3 stories in height. 23 different house types are proposed. Proposed materials include red and buff brick, artificial stone, and grey and red roof tiles. Regarding drainage, the applicant has ruled out infiltration as a surface water disposal option and the proposals include a buried attenuation tank at the lowest part of the site, at the southern tip of the site, which would then discharge to the existing watercourse that runs along the site's southern boundary. Foul water will be directed to the existing sewer beneath Owl Lane. In terms of assessment of the proposals, the principle of development and the proposed land use is considered acceptable. Site allocation HS47 carries full weight and the site is allocated for residential development. The site is also within the North Kirklees growth zone, which identifies Chiswell as a major strategic employment location for the city region and a location for over 1,500 new homes. The site allocation sets out a 280 unit indicative site capacity, which would be met. This represents efficient use of land and has been achieved through the inclusion of apartments. Other site allocation requirements will be met, including the required vehicular connection between Owl Lane and the adjacent allocated site MXS7 and the landscape buffer required along the site's southern boundary. The highways impacts of the development and the cumulative impacts of this and other developments coming forward in the area are a key consideration. The applicant has asserted that the proposed development would have negligible or acceptable impacts on local roads and junctions. However, this isn't entirely accepted, and traffic, congestion and highway safety impacts figure in many of the objections received in response to the council's consultations. The relevant site allocation notes that impacts on the wider highway network would need to be mitigated by the development. A full assessment of the proposed development's highway impacts is set out in the committee report. However, the key findings of this assessment are as follows. Firstly, impacts at the Shore Cross junction to the northwest of the site would require mitigation in the form of major junction improvements, to which the applicant has agreed to contribute £200,000. Highways England have withdrawn their previous objection in light of the applicant's findings regarding impacts at junction 28 of the M62 and junction 40 of the M1, and given ongoing assessment of cumulative impacts. So just to clarify, that means no contribution is recommended in relation to the strategic highway network, i.e. the motorway network in the surrounding area. Following amendments, the proposed Owl Lane roundabout and Spine Road are considered acceptable in terms of their design, alignment and capacity. Fourth point, a signed ban on right turns from the Spine Road into Chiswell Lane, the northern section of Chiswell Lane, is considered policy compliant and acceptable, subject to future monitoring and allowance for later works if proven necessary. Acceptable off-street parking is proposed across the development. Acceptable provisions for cyclists are proposed or would be secured via conditions or planning obligations. And finally, with regard to highways issues, a travel plan and a related monitoring fee is recommended to be secured via a Section 106 agreement to ensure the use of sustainable modes of transport is encouraged. The proposed layout is generally considered acceptable in design terms, and earlier concerns regarding placemaking, highway enclosure, legibility and other design matters have been addressed where possible. Open spaces are proposed in appropriate locations. However, to address on-site and local shortfalls, a contribution of £415,812, including funding for a local area of play, would be required. Members, I should point out that that figure may need to be slightly amended following a forthcoming recalculation in light of the unit size mix now proposed, but I don't anticipate that number will come down significantly. Impacts upon the amenities of existing neighbouring residential properties will be acceptable. The quality of the proposed residential accommodation is generally satisfactory. However, 179 units of the 280 would not meet the government's nationally described space standards to varying degrees. This attracts negative weight in the balance of planning considerations. Noise affecting residents of the development, which will come largely from the Dewsbury Rams ground to the west, would need to be addressed at condition stage. Adequate affordable housing is proposed, with a 20% policy requirement being met. Of the 56 affordable units, 75%, that's 42 units, would be for discount market sale, while 25%, that's 14 units, would be for affordable rent. This doesn't match the 45%, 55% tenure split normally required by the council. However, given the flexibility of the council's interim affordable housing policy, the headline 20% affordable housing provision proposed by the applicant, the significant Section 106 obligations required of this development, and the applicant's commentary regarding viability, although it remains the case that no financial viability appraisal has been submitted, the proposed tenure split is considered acceptable. Regarding biodiversity, the applicant has asserted that the site is of low value in terms of habitats. However, a net biodiversity gain will still need to be secured. An appropriate condition and Section 106 planning obligation are recommended. Regarding climate change and sustainability, the application site is a sustainable location for residential development. Electric vehicle charging points would be required, as would implementation of a travel plan, as previously mentioned, and drainage and flood risk minimisation measures would need to account for climate change. Full details of a drainage solution were not 23rd of October, 5 days ago. Detailed drainage plans were submitted and these are being reviewed by officers. However, given the space allowed by the applicant for attenuation at the southern corner of the site and given the adjacent watercourse, it is recommended that outstanding drainage matters can be delegated to officers to resolve, and that's a development management officer's recommendation rather than the LLFA's. A significant package of contributions and other planning obligations would be secured via the recommended Section 106 agreement. These would be of public benefit and therefore attract significant positive weight, as well as being necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. A total of 288 objections have been received, together with detailed objections from Councillor Lukic and the Chiswell Action Group and their highway consultant. All objections have been posted online. To conclude, approval of full planning permission is recommended, subject to conditions and the Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks, Victor. Right. First speaker is Mark Eastwood.
Thank you very much.
You've got 3 minutes and your 3 minutes starts now.
Thank you. This proposed development is highly concerning and inappropriate. There are manifold issues that have been highlighted by consultees and the Chiswell Action Group's draft report. The implications of their conclusions are severe, not just on existing residents, but also on any prospective residents should the development go ahead. It is disappointing that despite the revision of the proposals, concerns raised by Kirklees Lead Flood Authority and West Yorkshire Police nearly a year ago have not been acted upon. The Flood Authority raised 9 areas of concerns covering drainage and methodological concerns that have not been addressed. It is worrying that the application has reached this stage without providing satisfactory information to the authority, and it would be deeply inappropriate for the application to proceed further while the Flood Authority has flagged an objection to the proposals on this basis. The NPPF states in paragraph 155 that inappropriate development in areas at risk of flooding should be avoided. It goes without saying that blindly proceeding without the appropriate information and remedies poses a risk to current and prospective residents and risks of breaching the NPPF. It is similarly disappointing that the concerns raised by West Yorkshire Police in October last year have not been acted upon in the revised proposals, nearly a year since they were first flagged. The threat of vehicle crime and burglary and the lack of action to reduce that threat constitutes a breach of NPPF paragraph 127, which provides a requirement to create places that are safe. It is clear from the TTHC report commissioned by the Chiswell Action Group that there are serious flaws in the methodology deployed in the traffic assessment, and consequently the conclusions reached in the assessment are unsupported. The traffic assessment fails to take full account of the cumulative effect on traffic should the two other applications for large-scale developments near Chidswell receive approval. The full accounting of these proposed developments would certainly see the site access roundabout exceed capacity and impact on other proposed access points. There has been an inconsistent use of data in the traffic assessment, including unsupported exclusions of middle layer super output area data when calculating potential traffic distributions. These omissions are not unlike the issues flagged by the flood authority in the information provided. The traffic assessment needs re-evaluating to ensure that the appropriate information is taken into account. It is clear from the comments received on the application that traffic is an existing concern even without the completion of the three large proposed developments nearby. As with the flood assessments, we cannot allow the development to proceed blindly with an incomplete understanding of its real impacts. In summary, there have been serious concerns raised by residents and consultees. The development cannot proceed while these concerns are outstanding, and the conclusions of any revised impacts from reports may cast into doubt the decision to ever have removed the area from Greenwell. On this basis, I would ask the committee to decline the application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next, Mark Lewis. You've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair, and attending councillors for the opportunity to speak. We are in total agreement with the Chidswell Action Group with all the points raised by Mark Eastwood. Our own transport assessment was done in 2019 in response to the traffic assessment done by the applicants, and a number of rather disturbing points were raised. I'll try and be brief on this and take them straight from their report. The main Chidswell site, MXS7, is referred to in their report as Site A, and B is the proposed one at Haybeck Lane. It said that both of those, the site road network, if permitted, would provide a means of access to the development. This is the spine road, which may go across Chidswell Lane. Great importance was placed by Wakefield Council that this breakthrough from the site was of great concern to them because of the width of the existing road near the Huntsman pub. And so they have made no subsequent application on that, but it was of a concern that breaking across from the Owl Lane development into Chidswell could propose problems in terms of it becoming a rat run off the Owl Lane development. Other concerns that were raised is the fact that it's noted that the testing of the site junction is different to the other junctions tests in the TA. The site access junction is assessed assuming 100% of Site A has been built out in the base traffic scenario, whilst all of the junction testing assumes only 40% of Site A has been built on. The TA does not provide any explanation as to why this approach has been taken. It also picks up that the review has identified that certain census data has been omitted from the traffic distribution calculations. Only 7 MSOAs in Kirklees out of 59 and 3 MSOAs out of 112 in Leeds were accounted for. And it's unclear why the information has been excluded from the traffic distribution process. No explanation or justification is provided within the TA, and the missing MSOAs represent potential employment destinations for the proposed development and should therefore be included within the traffic distribution calculations. The report also identified several areas where additional information was required: the approach to traffic assessment, the distribution and routing of development traffic, junction modelling inputs, and base scenario traffic assumptions. Also, much more accident data review was required because there has been incidences of severe accidents at the Owl Lane site. In terms of the actual information that had been supplied, it was pointed out that a lot of the visual quality of the sensors distribution was poor and in part illegible. It was therefore hard to interpret anything meaningful from the graphics provided as justification for the decisions implemented within the census data distribution process. The whole thing about the development is the fact that it has to be taken into account the massive amounts of development that could go around this particular site, especially MXS7, and there is danger that the breakout onto Chiswell Lane could actually eventually be changed from a possible one-way to a two-way route. There are also concerns that the traffic assessment that
now then, Eric Firth, come on in. You've got 5 minutes. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Am I on?
You're on.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm speaking on this because it is now part of the future, if you like, of Dewsbury East. I voted for the local development framework, and I'm not a hypocrite, so I will not oppose this. That are raised. It has been mentioned about cycling, connectivity, and I think my work colleague has raised that point, and I do agree with him on that. Though I do believe that's been addressed by officers, and if not, will be addressed by Commission. And I will jump about. I've got to say, regarding the social infrastructure, by the way, of the site, when it does mention lack of provision for GPs, the local GP on Leeds Road is actually advertising for customers, for want of a bit of experience for patients. So that scrubs that one out. Can I go on to ask why in 812 about the affordable part of the site? Why are they all clustered together, and why aren't they put out the side something in the corner points? These are all affordable. The poor folk live there. I would like those to be spread out throughout the site, if that's at all possible. And then I just like to mention something about noise attenuation at the ramp. We've already encountered problems with the further development off Owl Lane with noise. I don't want us to go down that road again. We must find a way of attenuating the noise from the stadium, from the traffic, and from the car boot sale. Now, whether I know the ballots are signed up to the Green Street objective, so would it be possible? I know there's a line of hedges down there, and I just wonder would it be possible to plant some trees down at that edge of the site, and that would attenuate both the noise and the light from the stadium. And the other thing, I mentioned the hedges, about biodiversity in 1096. Well, I'm all for retaining all the hedges and around the site. It is a big site, but who will look after them? At the moment, the farmer flails them annually. Who would be responsible for that going forward? Can I mention it mentions in the report about apprentices, which would it be possible, if, depending on, of course, the decision today, if it's approved, would it be possible to work with Dewsbury College or any other colleges nearby with who have run courses for building apprentices, whether it be bricklayers, electricians, or whatever, and it would really be a good opportunity to get them on site and find some way of actually working with, if other sites are brought forward, with other developers, so that it's not a short-term measure. And can I also welcome, by the way, I know I've touched on the putting the social housing together, but I do welcome the diversity of the site. There's so many different properties on the site. It will be make it really attractive. Though there's one point that I don't particularly like when the officer said a lot of these homes don't fit the national standard, and I would like to ask why, and why is that acceptable? Thank you, Chair.
Hey, thank you, Eric. Next, it's Councillor Lukic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I have a sore throat today, so sorry if I have to pause for a moment. The expansive open landscape at Chidswell is one of Dewsbury's jewels. You can see from the roughly 300 objections to this first planning application how proud this part of our town is of its green fields, of which we have precious few remaining. And I support Mark Eastwood and Mark Lewis's arguments for refusal and Councillor Firth's comments about local apprentice involvement and the home space standards. It is saddening that this open area has now been parcelled up in the local plan and allocated for development. If we are to have development here, then we should at least make sure all the associated infrastructure is properly fit for purpose. Since the very start, I've been concerned about this. And since July this year, I have formally objected to the proposed cycle infrastructure, which does not meet updated design standards found in Local Transport Note 120 from the Department for Transport. This objection was omitted from your report in error, but hopefully you have had a chance to review it from the update to committee, which I am grateful to Victor for putting together. The proposed development includes 3-metre wide shared use facilities for pedestrians and cycles, but this runs against the key principles stated in the national guidance, which states the following. Cycles must be treated as vehicles and not as pedestrians. On urban streets, cyclists must be physically separated from pedestrians and should not share space with pedestrians. The DFT guidance later states that shared facilities can create particular difficulties for visually impaired people and adds, where a shared use facility is being considered, early engagement with relevant interested parties should be undertaken, particularly those representing disabled people and pedestrians and cyclists generally. Engaging with such groups is an important step towards the scheme meeting the authority's public sector equality duty. In these circumstances, I can't agree with the officer comment that the proposed shared arrangement is considered acceptable. Our Highways supplementary planning document and Highways responses to this application were received before the updated DFT guidance was released. Nevertheless, the SPD clearly states in Key Design Driver 2 that cycling infrastructure should be informed by the DFT's detailed guidance on cycling infrastructure design, which has now been superseded. The updated guidance against shared use facilities on urban streets means that the proposal is no longer in line with our own key design driver. I therefore still believe the application is not compliant with policies LP20 and LP21. I ask the committee to defer the application for the highways infrastructure to be redesigned to provide fully segregated facilities for cycles and pedestrians. Upgrading to segregated facilities would only require minimal, at most, additional land take for the highways. Within the existing Spine Road footprint, for example, you can clearly fit 2-metre wide dedicated footways, 1.5-metre landscaped verges, and a 3-metre wide two-way cycle track. Even if the committee is satisfied with shared use facilities, the application should still be deferred so that the recommended consultations can be undertaken with local groups representing disabled people, pedestrians and cyclists. I am strongly concerned, however, that approving shared use facilities here could set an undesirable precedent for the design of distributor roads in major developments. Thank you, Chair and members, for listening. I hope you will agree that if you can't refuse the application at this inappropriate location, then the application should be deferred until this highway safety issue is addressed.
Thank you. Paul Butler.
Okay, thank you.
Paul, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you. I'll use my time to respond to some of the comments that have been made. There are no outstanding issues given the point we're at in the process. The site is not located in the green belt. It's allocated 280 homes in the local plan. The development is entirely in accordance with the site requirements in the local plan. We originally proposed a scheme of 252 homes at the site, but requested to increase it to 280 by officers in accordance with the allocation. The result of this is an increase in the provision of more 1, 2 and 3 bedroom homes within the site, which accords with the council's identified housing needs. The size of the proposed homes are the same or similar to those which have recently been approved by the council on other schemes in the district. In terms of highways impact, the development provides highway improvements that far outweigh its impact. The impact of the site on local junctions is as low as 3% at peak times. Whilst the impact is low, the scheme provides substantial off-site improvements, which include the new roundabout to serve the development, the largest strategic site allocation to the east, and it also improves access to the Dewsbury Rams site. Site delivers the first stretch of a new link road, which will connect Owl Lane to Leeds Road, which will enable traffic to bypass the Shaw Cross Junction entirely. Notwithstanding that proposals also deliver £200,000 towards the council's own proposal to improve the capacity of the Shaw Cross Junction. Chiswell Lane will only remain open for a short time until the link road connection to the strategic site is delivered. We've undertaken surveys on Chiswell Lane. It's not heavily used at present, and there's an occasional increase in its use when there are accidents on the M1 or M62, but these are thankfully very frequent. The proposals provide 1.2 kilometres of 3 metre wide on-cycle paths located through around the site. These will be largely unobstructed. There are only 10 occasions where driveways will cross them, meaning on average there's one driveway crossing every 120 metres. The drainage strategy for the site has been agreed with the LLFA. It is only the final drainage details that need to be agreed. Something will be usually agreed at the conditions stage. Hedges will be retained and looked after by a management company in perpetuity. And we would also welcome the discussions with the council with respect to employment opportunities. The scheme will deliver 20% affordable homes on site, which is a total of 56 new affordable homes. These are pepper-potted across 6 locations, which are clearly identified on the planning layout by the red stars. This commitment is also being met in light of the £2 million financial contributions that the scheme is required to deliver, which includes £1.15 million towards 3 local schools. This figure has doubled since the initial submission of the application due to a surge of pupil demand at the schools over the past year, and not because of the development. The development is providing a solution for this. So finally, discussions have taken place by the officers for over a year now, and as a result, proposals are heavily influenced by the strategic objectives of the council. We therefore ask that you can support the application today, and in doing so, you would enable the delivery of new homes and the protection of construction jobs at a time when they are needed the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks. Right. Kathy Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I've got quite a list, so I hope the officers have got the pens to the ready. I think that we're often blinded by the word affordable, which does not necessarily mean that we're doing the right thing on developments. I too voted in favour for the local plan. I do believe that we need housing, and we're often told by this government to build, but we've got to get it right. And I have concerns. I live in the area. So Owl Lane, the B6128, heading south to the Wakefield Road, that roundabout has pressures continually, daily. It can't cope. So I wondered if officers can tell me what actual conversations have you had regarding the tailbacks now, because it borders with Wakefield and Kirklees. So we have massive pressures there. We have a development across the road, Amberwood. That's equally a pressure. They struggle if they're coming out of that junction from Amberwood to turn right. Adding a roundabout will only exacerbate that situation as it is now. And I'm glad to see that Wakefield Council did bring up the issue regarding Pickering Lane to Garthorpe becoming a rat run, because it most definitely will. That's a tiny little narrow lane which the Huntsman pub is on. So I'm worried about that. But the other part I want to bring up is 8.9, air quality. I don't think there's been enough information supplied on that. And combustible soil, I want you to talk me through the combustible soil. The drainage report, I'd got that down on 10.82. I'm worried. The update, it's not here today. And I don't think consideration from the environmental health, I don't think everything's there. We currently had a development recently at Amberwood. There's a car boot sale there on a Sunday, and I'm not talking a couple of cars. That's huge pressures on the network where they just park up at the side of the road, despite there being parking facilities within the Rams. There's also the rugby ground when there's matches. I just think there's a lot of things that we need to look at. And I also have concerns regarding the size of the units. What is the national standard? Because I did hear the officer quote 179 units aren't. Now, it's about getting it right. I'm wanting a deferral for more information to come back to us today. I support housing, but I can't support this in its current form. What I'm asking for is a deferral. So I move a deferral on this.
Thanks, Cathy. Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, I think I would second the deferral on the same basis, because those are some of the same points I was going to make. And I'll say a few other things. This is a big site, 280 houses. In my ward, we've had a lot lower numbers, but we've had this situation where decisions have been made, delegated to officers on the basis that everything else would be sorted out, including some of the things here, like drainage. And we have sites in my ward where houses have been built and people now live in them, and the surface water drainage is still not sorted out. So, you know, if you've got a site with 50 houses on it and the surface water drainage is not sorted out, can you imagine the potential problems if you're on a site with 280 houses on it and they still haven't sorted it out? I don't really understand, and I'm a newbie to this committee, but I don't really understand why planning committees are asked to make decisions when there's so much information not available to them. They were asking us to approve this when we don't know what the drainage is going to look like on a site that's in a flood zone. Also, I picked up the point on the combustible soils. Environmental Health Services expressing concern particularly about phase 2. Unless there's been an update which I haven't seen, there's outstanding information on that. There's clearly also outstanding information on certain issues to do with the highways, which Councillor Scott has pointed out as well. I personally don't know what a net biodiversity gain looks like in this situation. Maybe other members of the committee do know, but I don't know what that looks like. I wanted to ask questions about the public open space provision, whether that was going to be maintained by Kirklees or whether it was going to be one of these private setups, which I don't like. I think I wish our public open space was maintained by the council, because then it's truly public open space. And I did wonder whether the £200,000 for the Shore Lane junction was enough, because it doesn't sound like anything like enough money to me for a junction improvement. So, yeah, lots of questions, lots of outstanding information, and I think as a committee we need this information before we make a decision on such a big site. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nigel. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to support deferral because of all the reasons that have been mentioned, and I certainly defer to Councillor Scott with her intimate local knowledge of this site, and she was really eloquent in expressing it, and she mentioned an issue that has been worrying me for some time, and that is size of dwellings. I think I hear what's said, that we can't use that as a reason, but in some ways, I can't help feeling that for whatever reason, this is a bit of dereliction of duty. I've listened to a radio program some weeks ago saying that we had got the worst standards in Europe for the size of dwellings. In other words, space for people to live in. It is not getting any better. And yet the developer in this case is saying, "Oh, I'm not going to do anything about it." Yes, all right. One could be lost for words. The other thing that I'm a bit concerned about is the junction with Chidswell Lane, because when you look at the layout plan, you've got a junction with a road on the inside of a bend, which just looks. You sort of think, well, that can't be right. And then you read what it says in the report, and it says that that's not going to be activated until the development on the big Chidswell site is going to take place. Well, you leave something like that. The barrier there has got to be adequate to deter people from getting onto Chidswell Lane or getting from Chidswell Lane onto this road, and it might also need adequate turning facilities at the end of the road whilst it is not being, the connection is not being made. It's like a lot of other things, and like Councillor Patrick said, there are loose ends which don't seem to be being properly dealt with. So I will certainly support deferral on this one. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. I actually support Councillor Scott to defer this application to get some out more from the developer. Yeah, because I'm not a local councillor over there, but I might have not much knowledge about that. Poor Councillor Scott, she lives in there. She knows the problem, traffic problem or highway problem there. So on that issue, I think I'm supporting that. But again, there are 280 houses, Chair. The developer must be making a big profit out of there. Yeah, 200. So why not listening to the local people? Yeah, they should put some more. I know, I agree, but there is some good contribution. Section 106. Well, if we compare by 280 houses, it's not very good enough. Those contributions. We need some more out of that. Yeah, and Councillor Eric Firth has mentioned about this affordable houses on one place. That's segregation. We should not looking at. I remember, I think some time ago, I think as strategic planning committee, there was an application came from Ashborough Ward in Huddersfield, where they put the segregation on there, and the U committee deferred this application to come back, spread the houses of there within the state. So I don't know how the planning officer forgot about that. So I think officers should take into account there must be a separate of the. I don't want to see a state within a state. Yeah. So on that reason, I think we need to defer it, and officers should go back to negotiate a bit further. Thank you.
Thanks, Mohan. Donna.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm more than happy to support deferral on this. I think we need a lot more information on drainage and a lot more information on highways. I do know this area, and I have been before in the past when they've had the car boot sales up there. And yes, there is a lot of cars, and they are always parked down the road and on the verges and all the rest of it. I mean, I haven't been for quite a while, but I imagine that it is still the same. In fact, it could probably actually be more than what it was from last time I went. So I do think, yeah, it certainly needs defending. Also, one of the objectors mentioned there've been some accidents in that area. I'd also like to know just about, you know, how many accidents, and, you know, sort of how severe as well, because I think, you know, that's certainly going to have some impact on the highway as well. So thank you, Chair.
Right, Donna. Right, just before I go to Matthias, I wrote a few things down as well, funnily enough, about housing sizes. I keep mentioning this time and time and time again, and developers do not seem to be listening. We're supposed to be one of the biggest economies in this world, but yet we're quite prepared to put people in sub-sized housing, which it's 2020. It's not good enough, not by a long way. Mohan mentioned Dashbrow, where it was, funnily enough, it was Paul Kane who mentioned the clustering, and we want it pepper potting, not just clusters. We're not accepting that. So that's mentioned in the report. There's that. And it mentioned noise, it mentioned light, it mentioned edges. We've had public open space mentioned, who's going to look after it. We've had drainage mentioned. We've had Councillor Lukic mentioning highways and cycleways. Really, it hasn't got a right lot going for it at this moment in time as this application. So I'm quite prepared for this to be deferred, and let's have some proper information laid before us. But I really do want to stamp down on this. Building houses that are not big enough. It's got to stop. I don't care whether it's in our local plan or not, but we've got to make some choices. And I'd be quite prepared to say, no, we're not having it because of this. I've no doubt somebody will tell me that I'm wrong, as I usually do. But I don't care. It's time we started to stand up for ourselves. So I'm prepared for this to go back to officers and defer it. I don't know, Matthias, if you want to add anything to that.
Chair, committee, I do not disagree with a lot of points that you have raised. Obviously, I want to clarify a few bits. I think it would be helpful to hear from Chris Dowes, just so you've got a bit of clarity on that highway situation, and Victor can come in on a couple of points. But I hear what you want to defer it on. I can take a lot of that away. All I want to do is be really, really clear about what we can achieve, or what we can ask the developer very clearly to go away and respond on. So we will do that. I hear this house size issue. I am a firm believer in the National Technical Space Standards as a good starting point for housing. Yes, we don't have a local plan policy that backs us up, but amenity, internal, external amenity is a planning consideration. So you're well within your rights to be concerned about that. So if I could, and just to clarify the deferral points, if I could ask just 5 minutes of your time for Victor and 5 minutes of your time for Chris Dowes, just to go through those points, and then we can really reinforce what you want us to go away, sort out with Barrett's, and come back with a better plan. And some more details. Victor, can I bring you in first, please? Just because I know you've been beavering away in the background. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
Thanks, Matthias. Victor.
Thanks, Chair. Through you. So just to run through the various issues raised that we can come back to committee on at some point in the future. I'll just start with drainage. Yes, there is a fair bit of information lacking from the applicant's submissions, so officers don't have answers to all the drainage questions that members will have at this stage. We can absolutely go back and receive more information from the applicants and further comments from the LLFA, who as I said, have an objection to the application at this time. Officers, we weren't suggesting that those drainage issues won't be resolved. We were just recommending that they be delegated to officers to resolve, but absolutely fine. We can come back once progress has been made on those issues. Just to clarify, there was a reference to paragraph 155 of the MPPF, and about it was mentioned that development should be directed away from areas at risk of flooding. This is a site that's in flood zone 1, which is the same flood zone that covers most of the borough, rather than flood zone 2 or 3, which are areas of higher flood risk. So it's not the most risky site in the borough in terms of flood risk. But yeah, totally appreciate all the members' comments on drainage, and we will come back to you on that. Wakefield Council's concerns were mentioned, and members will be aware that the requirements in the site allocation for restrictions on left and right turns from this site and the Church Commissioner's site into the southern section of Chiswell Lane, they resulted from local plan preparation consultations with Wakefield Council, and officers' view is that those requirements can be addressed through signed restrictions rather than physical restrictions on movements, because obviously physical restrictions would then limit access to the Huntsman pub and some of the other properties on the southern section of Wakefield on Chiswell Lane. But we don't yet have a junction design that we can show members for what that junction would eventually look like once the Church Commissioner's site is brought forward for the development. So we can ask the applicants again to provide that, and that would include space for turning, which I think Councillor Pinnock mentioned, and more details of restrictions on movements. Cycling, we can come back, perhaps Chris Dowers in a minute can come back on that issue. Distribution of affordable housing across the site. Members you probably can't see the red asterisks, or probably couldn't see the red asterisks on the site location plan that denote the affordable housing provision across the site. It is clustered. That's correct. It is grouped in 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 different locations across the site. But if the members' view is that should be even more better spread out across the site, we can take that back to the applicants and come back to you with their response. Noise was mentioned. That was recommended to be dealt with by condition, and a lighting strategy was also referred to. That would have also been dealt with by condition. Just to clarify though, planting of trees, yes, is encouraged, and there is some tree planting indicated along the Owl Lane frontage of the site, which is great for aesthetic and biodiversity reasons. For noise mitigation, it's not that effective. Trees tend not to block that much noise from nearby noise sources, just to bear that in mind. Hedges that would be retained around the site, well, they would be the responsibility of a management and maintenance company. Any land on this site that would not be within private curtilages or adopted by other authorities like the Councillors Highways Authority would have to be retained and maintained by that company that will be set up. It would be required to be set up by the Section 106 agreement. Apprenticeships, yep, absolutely. We can steer Barrett's towards working with Dewsbury College. They are open to providing apprenticeships on this site if it gets planning permission. They have said that they do that on their other sites that they're developing. The national space standards that have been mentioned by many members will come back to committee on that. I won't repeat what Mr. Butler said or that Matthias said on the reasons why the applicant has said national space standards can't be met. Combustible soil was mentioned. Sorry, that's another thing we can pursue with the applicants and environmental health to see if progress can be made on that before it comes back. This application comes back to committee. Net biodiversity gain is something the applicant is working on. They are doing calculations, and our ecologists will be able to provide further comment on that to members. which should give members an idea as to what that would look like in terms of on-site provision or off-site provision nearby, or financial contributions towards off-site provision. Accident data was mentioned. I think Chris Dowes can come back on that point in a minute. I think those are all the issues on the planning side of things, not including highways issues. Apologies if I've missed anything. Please do raise anything that I have. Meanwhile, over to Chris Dowes through you, Chair.
Right, hi members, it's Chris Dowes here. I'll try to go through the issues as I wrote them down. Councillor Scott, you mentioned specifically the which is what I'm calling the Owl Lane Chancery Road roundabout, which is the A638, which is the one in just in the Wakefield. That junction was assessed as part of the transport assessment. Obviously, that roundabout actually does fall within Wakefield, and they were consulted on that. They didn't come back with any specific issues with it. The assessment shows that it does work. It is over capacity, especially at peak periods, particularly on the Chancery Road arm in the morning peaks. It is over capacity in that time. Now, the traffic generated by this development is actually quite insignificant compared to traffic growth in general on that roundabout. So, because Wakefield didn't come up with anything, we aren't proposing anything for that roundabout, and nothing's been proposed at that roundabout. Because the main impact on that is actually just general background traffic growth, and the impact of this and other committed developments is minor in comparison to that, or relative to that. But it was assessed, it has been assessed, and Wakefield were consulted on this application. Councillor Patrick mentioned the Shawcross Junction and the £200,000 contribution towards that. I mean, I think there's no argument about that. It's recognised that the Shawcross Junction does operate beyond capacity. It's been identified in our local plan as a corridor that needs to be improved as part of the Dewsbury to Leeds and North Kirklees growth zone. Basically, it needs to be improved to basically accommodate the local plan growth and development sites. The council itself is actually working up a scheme, or I've worked up a preliminary scheme for that junction, which we've had preliminarily costed out as well. Now, this development, again, the traffic from 280 houses won't have a significant impact on that junction, but it will have a cumulative impact on it, and so we feel it does need to contribute towards it. Now, £200,000 is actually a significantly larger percentage than their contribution would need to be, because they have a fairly minimal impact on the operation of that junction. But we feel that they're needed to, and we want to bring that forward as hopefully as a developer-led junction improvement rather than it being funded by other sources. So that we feel they're making the scheme's probably costed out of the region of £600,000. In that ballpark. We haven't got final costings for it, but we think a £200,000 contribution to that is significant. Accidents, I think Councillor Bellamy brought up accidents. Accidents obviously assessed as standard practice as part of the transport assessment on the surrounding network of the site. Now, there's been the occasional accident because there is on the network, but there's been no significant clusters or common causation factors on Owl Lane that suggest that there's a fundamental issue with highway design or a highway problem. The majority of accidents are usually down to driver error or not looking properly at junctions, that type of thing. So yes, they have been assessed, but no, there's no identified clusters or common causation factors that would sort of warrant further mitigation measures. Now, regarding assessment, and I think one or two people have mentioned that, this development obviously provides the roundabout onto Owl Lane, which is at one end of the Spine Road, and will ultimately take traffic from the whole development, or a percentage of traffic from the whole development. Now, this has been designed from a capacity point of view and a design point of view to take traffic that assumes that the adjacent site MXS7, which is a mixed-use site, is fully built out. So it has been designed to accommodate that level of traffic. Not only, in fact, it's over designed for the Barrett site on its own, but it's been designed to accommodate traffic from both developments. The same goes for the Shawcross Junction. Well, that was actually designed in house and has been tested by the council's consultants. It's been tested on the basis of the full build out of the Barrett site and the adjacent Church Commissioners for England site. And I think, unless there's any other points that, the Councillor Lukic mentioned the cycling infrastructure and local transport note 120, which I must admit is only really been published. I think it was the end of July this year when it was actually published. These proposals have been on the go for a lot longer than that, and they don't take on board. I'm not totally familiar with that document, but I'm sure I'll take Councillor Lucas's word that they don't take on board all the recommendations of those. So, I mean, I think he's talking about more of your super cycle highway type standards, similar to the one that goes between Leeds and Bradford. I'm not, we'd have to just check against that. The spine road itself has been designed as one of our standard spine roads. We're designed to accommodate, say, a 3 metre shared cycle stroke pedestrian provision, and then a 2 metre wide verge. I think on a road of this which is actually sort of more of a residential collector, that provision is probably, personally, I would say that provision is probably adequate. Sort of less experienced and less confident cyclists can use the shared facility, whereas a more confident commuter would probably feel safe enough riding on the carriageway on a road of this type. But I hear what Councillor Lucas has said, and it's certainly something we can have a look at. And I think, unless there's any other issues members want to raise, that's all the issues I picked up.
Councillor Patrick.
Just a point of clarification, really. I don't know whether I just heard that right. Did the officer just say traffic generated by 280 homes is insignificant? I mean, to my mind, 280 new homes in one location is going to generate a hell of a lot of traffic. I wouldn't have thought it was insignificant. I mean, does the officer just want to clarify what he means by that? Is that relative to the existing road network or what? Because it doesn't make sense to me, that.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, what I was, sorry if it wasn't clear, Councillor Patrick. What I meant to say, as a percentage impact of the traffic through that junction, it is a small, insignificant impact. It is not a significant impact on that junction in percentage terms compared to the volume of traffic that uses that Shawcross junction.
Yeah. Right, Cathy Scott.
Thanks, Chair. I think Councillor Patrick's just asked one of the questions, but I don't want anybody to be under any illusion. I travel there every day, and I know the impact. And it's not 280 houses. This is in addition to what's already just being developed across the road at Amberwood. This road, and I'm talking about the B6128 Owl Lane, provides access routes from commuters from Batley, from Ossett to Batley to Leeds. This is where they get on to get through to the motorways, and that it's often at a standstill. I really think this assessment needs to be re-looked at, and because you're working with Wakefield, we need to know what plans there are for the future.
Thanks, Cathy. I think basically I think we've covered all points that we've spoken about. I think Victor's covered them, Chris has covered them. Like I said, there's a hell of a lot of work wants to be done with it. So it has been moved for deferral for a lot more information. It was moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Patrick. So we will go to a vote.
Right, thank you, Chair. Right, so this is a vote for deferment to cover obviously all the points that have been previously summarised. So if I can start with Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Patrick.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
4.
Councillor Scott,
4.
Councillor Sokol,
4.
Councillor Hall.
4.
That's 7 votes for deferment.
And that, colleagues, I make is it. So,
Here.
Thank you.
yes, looking forward to a nice drive home from Huddersfield now. Right.
Hopefully not via Howell Lane.
No, I hope not. That's a very funny route to Hackman-Wyke.
See you all later, and we'll
Yeah,
switch off.
thank
And thank
you,
you for
thank
taking
you.
part.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.